Part 258. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 2580. 1. The 6 people looked at their palms and fell into confused contemplation. They felt that they didn't work hard enough, and they didn't explode a small universe, so why did they win against a well-known strong man? Not far from the 6-person group, a similar scene occurred. The absolute strength of the Western Kingdom is far greater than that of the Xinhe Kingdom. Furthermore, the Xinhe Kingdom has fewer strong men than the Western Kingdom. It is extremely desperate to deal with the 7 major countries, not to mention the few strong men in its own country. In the process, a part of the territory of the 13 countries that had just been occupied was also divided. In such a front line, the ratio of strong enemies and ourselves could reach an astonishing several hundred to 1. It took hundreds of high-level experts to face a person of the same level who believed in the Black Kingdom. With such a ratio, no one thinks that the Black League has any chance of winning. But reality slapped those people hard in the face. Especially the once arrogant Western Kingdom, before this battle, had always believed that as long as they mobilized a little force, they could defeat the Xinhe Kingdom's troops in one fell swoop. But now, as crazy as they were back then, they are just as embarrassed now. Although the troops who boasted themselves to be strong came to attack unscrupulously in greater numbers than them, very few of the strong men believed in the Black Country troops. Then, they discovered that there seemed to be something wrong with the understanding of themselves and others. Boom. Wow. Crack. Various powerful attack forces were released from various groups of 6 people. The squad leaders responsible for outputting the total force, regardless of men and women, each had a cold look on their face, and they were different from the strong men attacking in front of them. Came an evenly matched energy release. What? Resisted? Is the person in front of me an elite class? Even if you are an elite class, it is still impossible for you to fight me head-on. Why? Fighting head-on with a combat squad that resisted his attack, the face of the strong fighter changed wildly. As a strong man who grew up with fighting spirit, his attack attribute is aggression. Strength and piercing energy are the strongest and what he is best at. However, this attack method was rejected by the seemingly ordinary Nobu Higuo in front of him. The 6 members of the ordinary combat squad resisted head-on. We did it. The members of the 6-person class were also shocked at this moment. Like the previous recruits, they had no idea that they and others could resist an enemy's fighting spirit master. You know, fighting spirit is much stronger than the magician's frontal stabbing ability. But such a thrust was blocked by them head-on, and made the fighting spirit master take several steps back. We can win. Let's go. The 6 people had ecstatic expressions on their faces, and they continuously channeled their energy to the squad leader. The battle here did not last long. Although the 6-person team could not stand the fighting spirit in front of them, when the other classes rushing to help behind them arrived, the 2 groups of joint classes took action, and the fighting spirit strong man could only. It is painful to drink and hate this. Not only here, but also in the surrounding classes, when they faced the enemy's strong men, the weapons were difficult to use, so they used the joint fighting skills taught by Marshal Yan himself. After trying this, they were all extremely shocked. He discovered that even though he and his team didn't seem to have much outstanding joint fighting ability during the same period, they were able to quickly draw a tie with the strong ones, or even crush them. Even if some of them are still unable to fight against the strong men like themselves and others, they are enough to fight for a while. The temporarily overwhelming number of troops in the Black Kingdom will act as a decisive force, and other teams will suddenly come to respond. As a result, the whole war seemed to end in an anticlimax. It seems that the Xinhe Kingdom has sent out new recruits who are considered useless this time, and they are giving away their lives as if they are cannon fodder. However, in the actual war, these troops who were considered to be cannon fodder suddenly burst out with earth-shaking terrifying power. After this battle, all the countries on the planet that had been silent because of the last air battle became even more silent. The media was also completely speechless and completely silent. Because no one knows what to say. It seems that apart from reporting these wars well, there is no other place to smear them. Even if they want to smear them, they don't know where to smear them. This time, the battle between the Xinhe Kingdom and the Seven Kingdoms has reached the stage where the Xinhe Kingdom has invaded the hinterland of the Seven Kingdoms. The seven countries have also eliminated various domestic conflicts and resistances in their respective countries, and mobilized a large number of main border forces to come to engage in the battle. But the result is still not different at all. The army was defeated like a mountain. The main force of the Seven Kingdoms, including the strong ones that moved faster, dispersed after a large number of casualties. Moreover, the Seven Kingdoms seemed to have discussed it. The timing of counterattack was almost the same, and the timing of retreat was almost the same. Not bad, it declared failure at the same time, and then the entire army retreated to give up more territory. The whole world is watching this battle silently. In the end, it was the hegemonic country, the world's hegemon, who stood up when other countries did not know how to respond. But this time, the overlord is no longer the barking dog that only knows how to growl. As an old friend of the Western country, our overlord has announced that it will deliver some high-end weapons and equipment to the Western country. In addition, we do not rule out sending troops to directly interfere with the invasion war of the Xinyi country when our allies are in trouble. This is no longer a national policy. The battle between the two countries is a war in which the Xinhe Kingdom prepares to rule the entire planet. What we oppose is this kind of expansionism that endangers the entire planet. The overlord country is no longer the kind of person who talks nonsense. The words spoken by Shiyuan are concise and concise. This also shows that they will truly regard Xinhe country as their opponent in the future, and such the hegemonic country is the most dangerous. Several other major world powers also issued similar remarks. Even before the rise of the Xinhe kingdom, many countries had their own grievances, and even the grievances were not small. However, in the face of this strange rise, and in this battle with the Seven Kingdoms, Xinhe exploded with strange fighting power. China, and all countries in the world, no longer regard it as an arrogant small country. Instead, he regards Shinkuro as a real enemy, an enemy that can threaten the security of the whole world. The words of the overlord seem to give all the countries confidence. Suddenly, whether they were other countries on the same continent or those far away on the other half of the planet, they all spoke out. With a unified voice, none of these countries would say anything good about Xinhe country, and they all completely announced that they would stop all economic exchanges with Xinhe country and cut off the resource channels of Xinhe country, causing this country to there are no more war resources. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 2581. But these actions don't seem to have the slightest impact on the current Xinhe country. Because it has ruled 13 countries and is gradually encroaching on the 7 major countries, such as Xinhe country has already had enough resources to seize the land, but economically, the economy of Xinhe kingdom was not very strong to begin with. Now that the war has begun, not to mention anything else but the consumption of the economy stolen from the 13 kingdoms is enough for Xinhe kingdom to continue the war for several years, not to mention that with his current situation with such a speed of advancement, I am afraid it won't take too long to flatten the 7 countries. In this way, the international world's blockade and interception of Xinyi country will at most cause a decline in the national strength of Xinyi country, but it will definitely not affect the overall situation. Everyone knows that Xinhaiguo cannot stop. When the war has reached this level, it is difficult for individuals to change it. Of course, if the Marshal Iwa who is deep in the capital of Shinkuro Kingdom is willing to open his mouth and declare the end of the war, then there is still a possibility that this war that may gradually affect the whole world can be calmed down. But it was impossible for him to speak. Grrrrrrrrrrrr. In the secret room, Jia Yan opened his mouth and sucked in the energy transmitted through the pipe. MMM, MMMM, so full, M. Next to Jia Yan, there was a small body. She also opened her small mouth and sucked in energy vigorously, but it was not as powerful as Jia Yan. Moreover, she was absent-minded, sucked in a few mouthfuls of energy, and lowered her head. Put a handful of snacks on the ground into his small mouth, chewed them for a while, and then continued to suck helplessly under Jia Yan's fierce glare. That's it? Their energy supply is too late. Jia Yan felt that the energy in the pipe was about to bottom out, so he stopped swallowing it. Okay, Adisha has become more powerful again, ha ha ha. Aditha immediately changed from her half-dead state, jumped up from the ground, and ran around with her bare feet. Where are you now? Okay, after you finish practicing, go and write a war plan. Jia Yan shook his head. This little one is too lazy and doesn't want to practice every day. Then Jia Yan has to call her when he is devouring energy and urge her to devour some energy too. At this time, Adisha had just reached the invincible strength on this planet, which was probably around the peak of the heaven level. She was too weak. Oh, Adisha hasn't watched TV yet, Adisha hasn't eaten snacks yet, the master is exploiting child labor. After hearing Jia Yan's words, Adisha pouted, feeling extremely aggrieved. Who told you to be reborn as a child? Okay, be obedient, go to work, and after completing this 3-day war plan, the master will take you out to play for a day. Adisha's big eyes lit up. 3 days. 2 days. If you ask again, I won't take you to play. It's a deal. That's great. The master will take Adisha to play for 2 days while Adisha goes to work. Adisha ran barefoot to the door of the secret room again, but she remembered something halfway through, so she ran back again, picked up a pile of snacks half as high as her body on the ground, and looked at Jia Yan again, with a cute grin. He smiled and ran out with the pile of snacks. He dropped them as he ran. I'm afraid only half of them were left outside. This little one. Jia Yan feels more and more that it is quite interesting to make Adisha a real life form. Although she is a bit naughty, she truly has her own soul. If she didn't become a living being, Jia Yan wouldn't know that she loves snacks so much and is so playful. That's right. Although it's still the same object, but after changing its form, it will become something new. Jia Yan seemed to have realized something. But he didn't think too much, shook his head, stood up and walked out of the secret room. Today and tomorrow, he and Adisha will make all the plans for the game against the 7 countries. After finishing them, there will be a rest period of several days. He will really relax and take Adisha for a walk. Anyway, if you really want to talk about it, the war on this planet is just like a game for him and Adisha, so there is no need to take it too seriously. It was said that it would be within a year, but the current progress of the war. Jia Yan casually opened a product that was similar to an intelligent brain but was lagging behind by an unknown number of generations. He looked at the war progress report on it, as well as the battle situation and the relationship between the two sides. He shook his head and said, I'm afraid it won't even take a year. He knew that although the current Xinhe kingdom had only destroyed 13 weak countries, it had just begun a war with the 7 major countries, and the outcome was even uncertain. But that is for other countries in the outside world. From his perspective, when he gave his improved version of Yin and Yang Dao and the effect was good, the final winner of this war, or the entire planet, it has already come to an end. Xin Haiguo is sure to win, and seeing that the effect of Onmyato is so outstanding, it will greatly shorten the entire process. If you want to be conservative, let's do this. Jia Yan took out the photoelectric pen and clicked a few times on the virtual screen to highlight a small point in the hinterland of each of the 7 countries. These small points are all the border headquarters of the 7 kingdoms that are currently resisting the Xinhe kingdom. It can be said that they are heavily guarded and are basically their base camp. Tomorrow, let the soldiers parachute to their headquarters and fight against their border headquarters with an absolute scarcity of numbers. If such a war can be won, then I will not have to spend too much energy on the war on this planet. Time will take care of it, you just need to do your best to absorb the energy of the white dolphin. Jia Yan calmly turned off his brain. He knew that if he clicked these few times, the staff would receive it, and the frontline combat troops would also receive his message. As for what the soldiers in the army will think and whether they will resist, that is not Jia Yan's business. At least he knew that his order would definitely be carried out faithfully, because now he had such a degree of credibility in the Xinhe kingdom that no one would disobey his order. But Jia Yan didn't expect another point. That is, in this army, there is a sister in this world that he has not seen for a long time, that is, Jia Lin, who is only nominally 2 years younger than Jia Yan. As the younger sister of Marshal Yan, although Jia Lin is only 13 years old now, the last time there was a registration form in school, she filled out the enlistment form and hid her age, and also concealed that she was Jia Yan's younger sister. Of this information. Then, at the age of 15, she was assigned to a new military camp and became a reserve for emergency training for more than a month. Now, during the last major bombing campaign, she arrived at a border area called Iron Country. Listen up, you all. You are about the same age as Marshal Yan. Now Marshal Yan is already a marshal, but you still want to treat yourself as a child. I am the company commander, but I am not a few years older than you. So don't act like children. On the battlefield, you are soldiers, obey my orders well. The company commander stood in the border military camp of Taibanqiu, lecturing a group of hairless children below. He is not old either, only about 20 years old at most. Although he is older than there are many 15 or 16-year-old children below, he is definitely not mature. After listening to the company commander's words, the young soldiers below held their heads high and their chests high. Jia Lin was among them. She pursed her lips tightly and listened to the speech above. Beside Jia Lin, there were several young people vaguely surrounding her in the center. They are Jia Lin's protectors, or rather, Jia Lin's protectors who don't even know they exist. Although Jia Yan does not have deep feelings for his family members in this world, their character templates and so on are all customized like family members in the outside world, so for Jia Yan, he regards them as family members in another world. That's not wrong. Jia Yan is still very concerned about protecting his family. For example, Jia Lin, although he forgot to take care of his sister after getting busy, he also arranged for guards to hide in the dark to protect her. I also want to work hard, perform meritorious service on the battlefield, and become a female officer in the future. Jia Lin was only 13 years old, and she looked like a little carrot when standing in the crowd. For a child of this age, being 2 years older was a huge difference. She looked obviously malnourished. As soon as the training began, the company commander received an intelligence file from a communications soldier running behind him. After unfolding it and taking a look, the company commander's expression changed. Now there is a new mission from above. Tomorrow, our troops with a glorious tradition will attack the border headquarters of the Iron Country. Everyone, please go down and make pre-war preparations. This is your first time on the battlefield. I hope you won't get lost and let the meeting break up. After finishing speaking, the company commander left the playground worriedly and went straight to the staff headquarters, because he also wanted to verify the accuracy of this intelligence. Tell us to attack Taibanqiu's headquarters. How many people will go? We believe that the Black Country is too powerful. How long has it been since they invaded the Iron Country? We can break into the border headquarters of the Iron Country. I must perform well tomorrow. I was scared last time during the air raid. If I perform well this time, I might be able to make the superiors look at me differently. The young soldiers were all gearing up. As young people, they may not have enough experience, or their discipline may not be that good, but there is only one thing that is definitely better than the cunning veterans, and that is that they have enough passion. Just like this time, Jia Yan asked the young soldiers to go to the battlefield, and after experiencing air raids, they were no longer afraid of the battlefield, but were full of enthusiasm to win glory for the country and defeat the enemy. Including Jia Lin's female soldier company. Your name is Jia Lin, right? I hope we can have a happy cooperation in the future. A female soldier came to Jia Lin's side, stretched out her hand, and shook hands with the shy Jia Lin. Jia Lin, are you 15 years old? It feels like you are much younger than us. I do. I'm 15 years old. I've been short since I was a child. Jia Lin hesitated, almost getting confused. Haha, don't be angry, I just said that. We are still growing at this age, so don't be discouraged. The other party laughed. Well, I will still grow, and I will be taller than you, Jia Lin said childishly, confidently. Okay, you are taller than me. By the way, your surname is also Chia. Are you a relative of Marshal Jia Yan? No, I'm not his relative. Jia Lin was startled and waved her hands quickly. I'm just joking. With such a large population in our country, there must be a lot of people named Xia. I don't really think that you are a member of Marshal Jia Yan's family, otherwise how could Marshal Yan let his family come to the front line? The girl was happy. How is it impossible? It's right in front of you. Jia Lin curled her lips, and then she became a little distracted. Because she didn't know whether her brother knew that she had gone to the front line. I'm afraid he was so busy that he might not know yet. It is said that since the last time Jia Yan inexplicably showed terrifying abilities, he disappeared directly. The next time he saw him, Jia Yan had already conquered the 13 kingdoms and gained a great reputation. At that time, Jia Lin was a little afraid to talk to her brother, whom she was very familiar with. She always felt a lot of pressure, because all the classmates around her at the time had become fans of Jia Yan. She always felt that talking to such a mythical person, even if he is his brother, he will feel unreal. Later, she also discovered that she had become extremely privileged. Not only did she change the house at home, but vaguely, no matter what she said in school or what she wanted to do, someone would secretly help her complete it, and even some things she just thinks about it by herself, and others will understand her and help her complete it. This incident made Jia Lin both excited and scared. After thinking about it, she thought that her life could not be protected by her brother's wings, so she joined the army and wanted to use her abilities to show that she was also her brother's sister, even if it was impossible. Once she reaches the level of her brother, she will definitely become a qualified female soldier. In other words, even if she concealed her age, she was helped to do it secretly after she revealed this idea. I have to prove myself tomorrow. Jia Lin frowned and clenched her fists tightly. But she doesn't know, the majority of ordinary recruits in this barracks don't know, and even many squad leaders and junior high-level officials don't know that their mission this time is not just an ordinary combat mission. That's all. Although everyone knows that their mission is to raid Taibanquo's old base camp, many recruits believe that all the troops in the entire border area should come out together. Although the number may not be too many, based on the various troops since entering the border, judging from the situation of defeating a large number of Iron Country's elite troops with the joint strategy, it should be more than enough to wipe out all Iron Country's border layers. But the next day, the entire army boarded the low-altitude flying magic vehicles that came to transport them. Each vehicle lowered its speed and flew through the mountains and forests. What? This surprise attack is just a battalion like ours. What the hell? The total strength of our battalion is only more than 1,000 people, and we are going to attack the home troops guarded by nearly 10,000 people. How can we win this battle? Are we going to die? Marshal Yan probably didn't make this battle plan himself. How could he let the soldiers do such a death-defying mission? You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 2582. More than 1,000 recruits, as well as Jialin, were stunned after hearing this. Even the young people serving as protectors beside Jialin frowned. What's going on? Has no one told the higher UPS of this border force that Her Highness Lin is here? She actually came down with such a mission. No one really said that Her Highness Lin wanted to live a more realistic life as a recruit, so the higher UPS formulated such a secret mission. Even the top commander of the border force didn't know that Her Highness Lin was here. What should I do? Don't you want us to reveal our identity now and protect Her Highness Lin from being transferred? These young people don't care about their own death at all, because after joining the army, they are extremely outstanding and have long been struggling to grow into stronger super special forces. On this road, they have struggled too much, and it is precisely because outstanding and not afraid of death, he was assigned to participate in this mission of protecting Jialin. But they were afraid that Jialin would have an accident. Jialin's identity is really important. Marshal Jia Yan's only sister, and Marshal Yan himself, is the country's only support at the moment. Not only is she powerful, but she also holds the real power of the entire country, and her tactical abilities are also as shocking as ghosts and gods. And if such a mainstay of the country becomes angry because his sister joins the army and has an accident, then I don't know what the result will be. It may have a huge impact on the entire Xinhe kingdom. However, precisely because of their protection of Jialin, their connection with the middle level of the army was broken. The middle level had no idea that there was such a high-status person in this army. Damn it, if their last air strike led to the worst result, it would have caused us to go to the Western War Zone instead of to the Taiban Country War Zone. Otherwise, the Western War Zone would have been contacted long ago. After all, Her Highness Lin will go to a fortress that looks dangerous but is actually safe. There is no way it will be her turn to take on this mission. We can't worry about so much now. Let's report it to the superiors. As long as the information is given out, there will definitely be strong people coming to help. Although our strength is not bad, we cannot shoulder the safety of Her Highness Lin. Yes, let's report it, but the signal interference in this war zone is serious. The whole process may take several hours. The procedures are too cumbersome. Maybe when the time is up, we will all set off and no decision has been made yet. If it doesn't work, let's try our best to take care of Her Highness Lin. Several young soldiers made the final decision. They have the biggest secret, that is, they are one of the first groups of people to be trained by Jia Yan to formulate a joint warfare plan. Not long after Jia Yan became the marshal, he asked his subordinates to select a group of people with potential and perseverance. Young people came to teach the joint tactics. In other words, they practiced the joint tactics 1 or 2 months earlier than all the joint tactics soldiers today, and they were lucky enough to see Jia Yan from a distance. And also got a few tricks pointed out by Jia Yan. These few tricks were also the key factor that made them surpass other people who joined forces to fight. Therefore, although they do not have strong confidence in protecting His Highness Lin, they are absolutely determined to protect her to the death. On the second day, just as they expected, the information that they and others transmitted to the outside world through ordinary signals was suppressed to a relatively late intelligence letter, and failed to receive effective attention. So at this time, they set off. It's time. Jialin was in the crowd. She was only 13 years old, and she was half a head shorter than the boys and girls around her who started at 15. Her petite appearance made people want to pinch their cheeks. I'll be fine, my talent is great. Jialin was helped by Jia Yan to improve her talents and abilities. She didn't know how her talents suddenly improved, but for her, she probably inherited it from her brother, and compared to her brother, she was still worse. It's far away, so I'm not proud of anything. She thought this was her first time on a frontal battlefield, and she was extremely nervous. Soon after, the company commander came to them and gave the order to set off. What's going on with these people? Is it necessary to stick to them so tightly? During the march, Jialin found that there were several big brothers and sisters clinging to her, making her almost unable to see the road ahead. But she looked around and didn't dare to speak anymore. She was young and afraid of trouble. Anyway, she could walk, so she didn't care so much. When she arrived at the airport, a magic airship for combat was already waiting. Jialin got on the airship, and then found that the big brothers and sisters were squeezed in beside her despite being arranged to sit in other places. What's going on with them? They are such domineering people. Jialin was in a bad mood, but she still sat down obediently and waited for the mission to begin. Not long after, the airship got up, and Jialin's mood shifted away from the people around her and focused on this mission. She felt that she was getting more and more nervous. Little sister, are you nervous? Do you want me to tell the company commander and the others that you should get off the boat first, and you can escape this mission? An older girl who looked about 16 or 17 years old said in Jialin's ear. I don't want it, I want to make contributions. Jialin rolled her eyes and said angrily. She knew that others thought she was short and wanted to take care of herself, but she didn't think so. She believed that she was really strong and could become a female general who was not weak in the future. You are so ideal. Well, sister, I won't say more. The girl smiled and stopped talking. In fact, after receiving Jialin's response, several people around him looked at each other helplessly and stopped trying to persuade her. Jialin's wish was to go to the battlefield, and there was nothing they could do to stop her. What's even worse is that they didn't even explain it to the company commander and squad leader. If they did, they might get some preferential treatment on the battlefield, and the possibility of avoiding the death of Her Royal Highness Lin would be much greater. But unfortunately, they don't trust the commanders at the grassroots level because there is the possibility of the enemy being undercover. So it would be better not to tell anyone, and wait until the higher ups know the identity of Her Highness Lin, and then provide trustworthy support. We're almost there. You all should be prepared. Our airships and fighter planes took off 10 minutes ago. At this time, they must have launched an airstrike on the enemy's home base. Next, it's time for us to take advantage of the chaos to launch a decisive frontal attack on them. I hope you forget that you are recruits, and the enemy will not show mercy just because you are recruits. Please protect your own lives below, and may the Black God bless you. Black God bless you. The Black God originally believed in the God of the Black God, and after Jia Yan appeared in the Black God, not only did he not reject the Black God's belief, but on the contrary, he also condoned the development of the Black God Church, so now even soldiers are going to war. I used to say Black God bless me before. Jialin said this casually, and found that many people around her were also careless, with fear of war on their faces. After all, they are all children, so how can they not be afraid of war? But the children's unique fighting spirit urges them to move forward and make achievements right before their eyes. The same complex emotions as Jialin. It's just that she had just entered the battlefield and was already standing at the head of many of her peers. If she hadn't appeared unexpectedly, she would never have been at the forefront of the current battlefield. Put your gear on and get ready to skydive. Jump. Bear bear. The wind is fierce. Because they were all children with various cultivation abilities, even those who had not undergone paratrooper training, they boldly jumped down at this time. The young people who were magicians and cultivators could even fine-tune their directions in the air and falling speed. Soldiers practicing in other aspects can also do this to a certain extent. Even Jialin can do it, and if she is willing, she can make herself fly in the air. This is all the result of Jia Yan's secret help several times. There were a large number of anti-air weapons below, and they started shooting into the sky. Be prepared for pre-war training, join forces in defensive skills, start preparations nearby, and don't fall behind. The shouts of the high-ranking commander made Jialin regain her sense of duty. She quickly controlled her parachute to approach the young soldiers around her, and then discovered that these young soldiers were the people you meet while lining up. Join forces. Among the several teenagers, one was obviously the commander of everyone. Everyone released their energy, and then suddenly, a protective shield appeared in mid-air. Puff puff. Boom. Bullets and anti-air magic shot at their protective shields, but they could only produce a slight sway. Amazing. Jialin was shocked. Looking around, although the effect of other people's squads is good, it is far from as strong as their defense. I am afraid that the young soldiers, brothers and sisters around me are also hiding their strength like myself. Jialin knew that there were also capable young people in this group, so she smiled happily. Although she also wants to go to the front line and make contributions, she also knows that it is impossible to do such a thing with her own passion. It is also a good thing for her to have reliable teammates by her side. Bullets were fired in the air, and magic exploded next to the defensive shield, but it didn't cause any damage. In the entire fallen paratrooper phalanx, there was no figure of any paratroopers who had joined forces and were shot down. Moreover, the anti-aircraft weapons coming from the underground attack were also quite scarce. Presumably, the air attack just now caused a lot of damage to them. Judging from the underground, this is evident from the dazzling array of potholes. Therefore, this earth-shattering crackling defensive artillery fire was like a welcome salute to their group of young people, which felt quite weak and powerless. However, the weakness of anti-aircraft weapons does not mean that the enemy forces below are also weak. I saw that below the ground, enemy troops that far exceeded those of the paratroopers coming from above had been gathered, and there were already many enemy magicians and cultivators flying upwards. You are so brave to believe in the Black Country troops. You are simply too arrogant. Our army did not take the initiative to attack you and others, but you actually sent so many new soldiers to sneak attack on my base camp. Are you looking for death? A magician who definitely belonged to the upper echelon came directly towards the joint energy shield where Jialin and the others were. He gathered a huge fireball in his hand. The fireball swelled when it saw the wind, and quickly turned into half a person. The extremely high-temperature fireball then flickered and was released towards Jialin and the others. All-out defense. Several people's faces turned pale, and they quickly spread out the energy around themselves and others, vowing to defend against this energy. Soon, the fireball directly collided with the defensive shield where Jialin and the others were. There was a loud noise like the earth was shattering, causing several battlefields in the surrounding areas that were also experiencing fighting to turn their heads slightly and look around. We believe that the first batch of casualties will appear on our side, and we don't know which team is so unlucky to be spotted by the enemy's high-level magician in mid-air. Maybe this will start the drama of casualties. The enemy was extremely determined. You must know that the magician who faced that small team was definitely a high-level person in their base. He was the second in command of the magic force. He was no less powerful than the first in command. Placed on an ordinary battlefield, it is a top-notch combat power that one person can defeat thousands of people. And for such a being, who personally dealt with a team of Nobue Kingdom who had joined forces, and he was still a new recruit, with faces that looked like those of children, how could he not be able to kill them instantly? But a scene that shocked both his own people and his enemies appeared. After the master magician personally took action, he found it extremely difficult to accept that after the fireball magic, the figure of the defensive shield was looming. Several boys and girls behind the defensive shield were still looking at him with solemn expressions. Not even the slightest sign of injury. How is it possible, to take advantage of me again? The magician looked ugly and continued to create bigger fireballs. The joint tactics taught by Marshal Yan himself, please. It is indeed well deserved. Normally when we encounter such a strong man, we will definitely be dead. Unexpectedly, with our joint efforts today, even he can't stand up to us, we will not let him attack, fight back. In the team of young people here, there is one person who serves as the main energy operator. He is the strongest young man among them. Except for Jiolin, who works well with him, the others are in the same team every day. The same geniuses are used together, and after the combination of several of them, the combat effectiveness rises sharply. Boom! A piece of black energy is released here. This is pure black magic, and it is also one of the pure energies created by using the unique energy release method of black god believers in this world. The two sides collided again, only to be annihilated again. At this time, both the opponent, the magician himself, and the enemy's top brass watching the battle, as well as a large number of ordinary soldiers, all looked ugly. It seems that this is back. Although he is a young soldier, it seems. It's not that easy to deal with either. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 2583. The resistors below all looked ugly. This group of soldiers was obviously the new recruits from the Shinkuro kingdom who had come to the border of Tetsumoto country before. They turned into paratroopers and came to attack the rear. They were not willing to die. Also extremely difficult to deal with. However, Taibankyo has a huge advantage in this regard. That is, their numbers account for an unprecedented and overwhelming number. Although the Nobue kingdom wins every war with a small number, their number this time is less than 1/10 of the number of people in the Tetsubon kingdom's base camp. This kind of how can it be possible to win based on the quantity comparison? Not to mention, the front line base camp of Taiban country is a land of hidden dragons and crouching tigers, with all kinds of strong men emerging in large numbers. Even the commander-in-chief, the strongest man on the border, is here, so how can he lose? Go up. Get up all those who can fly, don't let them land, teach these young people from the black country who don't know the heights of heaven and earth a lesson in mid-air. Although the iron soldiers below have lost a large number of anti-aircraft facilities due to bombing, they still have strong ones who can ascend to the sky, and there are still a lot of them. More than 600 strong men are rising gradually. These were all magicians or cultivators. Although the number of cultivators was very rare, they were the ones who launched the first round of large-scale counterattacks. Flying sword, fast. The enemy cultivators used flying swords, causing their flying swords to stab some of the new recruits from the Nobue kingdom who were united in the air. Block. The first round of flying swords was blocked, but then another attack from the magician arrived. Everyone, please be careful and block the enemy's attacks well. Remember, this is a battle where we will make great achievements. Yes. Young people are young people. At this time, there are already a large number of new recruits from the Xinhei kingdom. They found that there were no other reinforcements behind their small army. They were originally worried, but the officer stimulated them. Especially after saying the 4 words "make meritorious deeds," everyone seemed to have been given a shot of blood, and their fighting spirit was as high as ever before. Besides, the current situation is that they can't do it without fighting. Otherwise, can they tell the enemy that they were deceived by the superiors and want to go back? War is not a child's play, and the nature of soldiers is to obey orders. Their general, Marshal Yan, who formulated the strategy, cannot let them die for no reason, so now, they must hold on. Come down. The battle between all-out defense and active mid-air interception began. The entire paratrooper phalanx not only had to face the anti-air weapons that were still a huge threat below, but also had to contend at close range with strong men who were far stronger than their individual soldiers. Every team was complaining. But these team members were surprised to find that they were uncomfortable. The attacks issued by the magicians and cultivators did not hurt them at all. Even some teams, due to poor coordination and bad luck, were surrounded by weak recruits when they were free falling. The team that was urgently combined did not have enough energy, causing the defensive energy to be blown away. But even so, other teams around you will quickly give energy to hinder the enemy's help. Many teams' parachutes were broken, and a team of people fell in free fall. But with the core squad leader present, the entire team would use everyone's energy to absorb the shock force of the fall when they landed. They even won more prizes because of this fall. A ranking that will soon land. It's just that things are not so easy on the ground. A large number of ordinary iron troops who cannot fly are already in full formation, ready to deal with sudden attacks from the Nobue Kingdom at all times. Both sides have some advantages and disadvantages. The disadvantage of Xinhei Kingdom is obvious, that is, all the soldiers coming are new soldiers, and the numerical disadvantage is too great. But the advantage is that they caught the opponent off guard. As for Taibankyou, this country was too confident in itself, and it never expected that Xinhaiguo would dare to send troops to directly attack their border base camp, so it was caught off guard. But their advantage is that both in terms of the number of soldiers and the number of strong men, they far exceed the new recruits of Xinhei Kingdom. The advantages and disadvantages of the two sides cannot actually be compared, because first of all, the most basic point is that the number and strength are far less than the other side. Logically speaking, Xinhaiguo has no possibility of winning. Death. Exploding fireball. The magician who was confronting Jiolin's team had an extremely fierce look on his face. As a strong man from the Iron Country, he was ranked among the top 100 in the Xinhei Kingdom. In other words, he had Xinhei quickly approaching him. Kill these brats, otherwise it would be too embarrassing. Boom. Large swaths of fireballs were released. The entire sky turned red because of the ferocity of the flames. This photo is high-level magic. We must resist it. The young man who was regarded as the total energy controller of this team changed his expression slightly, and then he used the highest level joint skills that ordinary teams could not master. Huh. The first one to feel something strange was Jiolin. She had been trying her best to participate in the joint effort and thought she had done enough. Unexpectedly, in this unprecedented crisis, all the recruits around her vaguely surrounded her in the center. Later, the young man who dispatched energy no longer borrowed her power, but borrowed the energy of others. In the past, and used some kind of joint technique that she couldn't understand now. Boom. After a heart-shaking tremor like the earth was shattering, the bursting fireball directly collided with the black power in the sky, and then both were completely annihilated. This time the energy clash ended in a draw again. It's rude to come back without reciprocating. This time it's our turn too. This group of teenagers directly suspended in the air, joined hands, and launched a turbulent counterattack against the arrogant magician. The great magician felt that there was something wrong with his eyes. He swore that he used all his strength in that move just now, and with all his strength, with the magician's terrifying attack power, he should have wiped out several teams behind this team with one move. All our soldiers below should cheer. But after one move, he found that it backfired. The joint skills of these children, the skills of the so-called Xinhei Kingdom that caused the air raid troops to sink into the sand when the Seven Kingdoms War started, are so terrifying. Not even his special move can kill him, he even seems to be motionless. This middle-aged mage looks middle-aged, but in terms of the history of this world, he has lived for hundreds of years. However, in his long life, he has never seen such an amazing person. A scene that shocked him. So after he was stunned, his reaction was a little slow, which was affected by the children's fierce counterattack. Puff puff. The recruits joined forces again, keeping Jiolin tightly protected in the center, and tried their best to release their energy into the captain's body. Then the captain's eyes had a fierce light, and he spit out the earth-shattering thing in his hand. Strength. The earth-shattering black attack power seemed to have undergone some kind of qualitative change, turning into a positive and negative explosive substance, and then exploded fiercely, and the heaven and earth lost their luster. After the shocking energy of the attack passed, the great magician who showed off his power just now had disappeared, leaving only a magician-specific hat floating in the wind. Died. The deputy commander is dead. He was one of the top strong men in our country, and he was beaten to death by a group of new recruits. This team of recruits is definitely quite unique, but even if the other recruits from the Xinhe Kingdom are not as strong as them, they definitely surprised us. Damn it, why are these new recruits from Xinhe Kingdom so scary? When the great magician died, the entire Iron Nation's troops felt an unprecedented sense of panic like a stormy wave. Although they still accounted for the majority in number, and although their number of strong men still had an overwhelming advantage, this phalanx of Xinyi country's new paratroopers, whose number was far smaller than their troops, still gave them an indescribable feeling of horror. After all, not everyone can easily kill a great magician. Such a great magician, to the outside world, would probably have reached the level of heaven, and in this world where most of the so-called strong people were only earth level, he was already a quite terrifying existence. Of course, from Jia Yan's perspective, the earth level and the heaven level are very easy to transcend, so he has 10,000 ways to smooth out this gap in level. This is the power of outsiders' eyesight. Therefore, the troops he taught casually were much stronger than the natives in this world imagined. You guys are so awesome. Jia Lin was protected by her big brothers and sisters, and her mood was ups and downs. She was a little scared just now, and she felt a little bit that she was being looked down upon. Otherwise, why would these people not use their own energy? They look down on themselves. We are just ordinary. In our training camp, there are many people who are better than us. Several said modestly. Oh, you will need my power later. I don't want to be treated as a weakling. I have also been trained, Jia Lin said thoughtfully. Okay, please follow us down. Our troops below have opened up the situation. This group of young people quickly landed and joined the team that attacked the enemy's lair with our troops. Looking down from a high altitude, the phalanx of new recruits from the Xinhe Kingdom that had just landed was like a small nail, driven firmly into the enemy's huge border headquarters barracks. A large number of enemy soldiers and equipment were continuously transported from the outside world, and they launched a firepower and strong numerical crushing of this group of new recruits from the Shinkuro Kingdom, whose number was less than 1/10 of them. But the problem is that these new recruits are like invincible little warriors, more like giants made of steel. They are often thought by the enemy to be dead, but they come out of the flames of war with fireworks. Haha, are these soldiers from the Iron Country scared? Oh my God, is this what it feels like to be surrounded by countless powerful enemies and we are standing still? Too weak, too weak. As long as we stand together, there is no enemy we can't deal with. Well, don't underestimate them. Wasn't a small team just killed by the enemy's strong man? This is a battlefield, so be careful. That team is the weakest in our training camp. It just happens that the weakest people get together, otherwise they would not be killed. I suggest that in order to avenge them, we go find the strong one. Second the proposal. If you kill the new recruits from the Black Country, you will have to pay the price in blood. This group of new recruits has gone crazy. Even the strong men who used to be humbled or even trembled when they saw them in Xinhe Kingdom dared to rush over and hunt them down. The strongest point of the entire recruit phalanx lies in defense. Then the attack power of some phalanxes is close to the true meaning of positive and negative forces, that is, the attack power is extremely strong. Of course, the strongest one is still Jia Lin is now part of the team that protects her. Wow, that one just now was probably as strong as my former principal, and we killed him at will. Jia Lin was almost shocked. After arriving on the ground, their small team was obviously much stronger than the ordinary paratrooper recruit team. The enemies they fought were simply crushed. Even the strong ones were killed in 1 or 2 moves when they rushed over. And most importantly, what's interesting is that their cooperation is different from the clumsiness of ordinary teams. Whether it is movement or energy operation, it is extremely smooth. In other words, while they have sufficient mobility, they can also kill the enemy as quickly as possible. It would be right to treat their team as top players. And Jiolin is quite embarrassed. That is, although she is also in this team, the power she releases can be absorbed by the core young people of the team, but often in a symbolic way. It seems that she did it to give Jiolin face, otherwise he would not even be able to do this. It doesn't look like it has any energy at all. However, Jiolin still has a strong sense of participation. After all, following this team, she can face the super powerful enemies again and again and kill them easily. This is almost as if she has done it herself. As much fun as you want. You little brats, don't be too proud. And just as their small team had killed more than 20 strong men one after another, and successfully smashed the enemy formation of nearly 500 into pieces, at the same time, there was a voice as cold as ice, "Arrival" is chanted from the rear of the enemy's base camp. Then in the base camp, a figure holding a two-handed sword rushed from the rear to the front line with great ferocity. This man had a long beard and an extremely dignified face, but he also had the kind of confidence that only belongs to the strong. "Commander-in-Chief. The general is here. He is the strongest person in our army. Ha ha ha, the commander-in-chief is here. These new recruits who believe in Black Country's magic must all be decapitated. We must win." Among Taibanquo's troops, bursts of cheers broke out when their strongest commander finally showed up. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 2584. It turns out that the commander-in-chief of this enemy force is this person. The young man who was the core commander of Jiolin's team looked ugly. The others obviously recognized him, and their expressions were extremely ugly. Who is he? Jiolin didn't know this man and thought it was strange. He is the retired sword master of Taiban Kingdom. He was once one of the legendary strong men on our continent, and he even tied with one of the original brave men. Brave. Hearing this name, Jiolin's face instantly became solemn. She knows about brave men. No one on this planet does not know the bravery of brave men, because everyone has heard various deeds and legends since childhood. Different from the so-called Dragon Quest and other stories on the outside world, Edisha brought this matter into this world in a bad way, and Jia Yan was also happy to see it happen. So there really are brave men in this world, and there is an evil dragon, but it doesn't exist on this planet. But the prowess of a brave man is a real thing here. As for the sword master who has fought against brave men, he is definitely extremely powerful, even the retired one. Juggernaut. Is he the sword master who has been on TV in various countries in mainland China many times? Jiolin's breathing stopped. And the few young people around her have gathered the most powerful energy, seeming to think that if they don't go all out, they might not even have a chance to take action. Not far away, the company commander with scars also changed his demeanor. It is rumored that one of the strongest men in the Iron Country is also one of the most well-known strong men on our continent. Is he actually serving as the commander-in-chief in this war zone? How come we don't know this information? The company commander was horrified. Because if they knew that the sword master was here, they would not send only such a small number of troops. At least there would be a team of strong men who could deal with the sword master. In this world, it doesn't mean that your troops are strong. You will definitely win the war, because there will also be strong people here, and this is the sword master. Do you believe in the troops of the Black Country? Very good. I have never thought that in my old age, I can see the rise of an unprecedented country and threaten the life and death of our Iron Country. Juniors, have you allowed me to do so? An opportunity for the old man to make a move. The old sword master was like an ordinary old man, but when he slowly pulled out the two-handed sword behind him, his whole aura and appearance underwent earth-shattering changes, as if he turned into the most blazing sun on the battlefield. Everyone will be melted by this blazing sun. This is the terrifying thing about the top strong men in Iron Country. It's over, we may not be able to defeat it. Even the boys and girls around Jialin felt desperate. They had full confidence in themselves since the beginning of the war, but now after seeing the Sword Master, they actually said something that they felt sorry for. This shows how terrifying the Sword Master is. The momentum has already suppressed any team from Xinhe Kingdom present. Well, Your Highness Lin, we are actually secretly protecting your team. There may be a life or death battle next. Please retreat under our protection. As long as you avoid the next crisis, there will be a battle at the base camp soon. There are strong men coming to protect you. Originally, the captain of the joint team did not need to speak to Jialin at all, but at the critical moment, he could only reveal the identities of himself and others. Ah! Your Highness Lin? Are you here to protect me? Jialin's big eyes widened, and then she understood everything. Why do so many powerful young masters happen to appear around me, and why do these people join forces to become much stronger than an ordinary team? It turns out that they came to protect themselves. No wonder, she is her brother's sister, the biological sister of the dignified Marshal Yan. How could she not have the power to protect her? Okay, let me go. Jialin wanted to continue to stay stubbornly. After all, her character was almost similar to the real Jialin from the outside world. She was once willing to transform into an avenging angel in order to investigate the death of her brother. How could she be so easily changed? Give up? But after thinking about it, she understood the current situation and staying alive would only harm others, so she nodded in agreement. Oh! But in the distance, the approaching old sword master was flying high, but he was paying attention to this team, because he knew that the most powerful team in this recruit army was the team that killed his deputy, the great magician. While he was communicating here, he looked over here and then smiled lightly. Who am I talking about? I didn't expect that in this army, we can catch big fish. Jia Yan's sister, Jia Lin. Like a bolt from the blue, the entire battlefield was as violent as five thunders. Is the status of the Sword Master high? It was very high, almost as high as the sky. It was like seeing a legend. After all, he was someone who had fought against legendary warriors. However, compared with Marshal Shinkuro Kuniwa, that pales into insignificance. Even the legendary brave man is already far behind compared to the Marshal of Nobue Kingdom. The former is just a legendary figure. Even if he has great fighting ability, he is just a strong man. But as for the latter, he is the famous Marshal Yan. He not only annexed the 13 kingdoms in 1 month, but is now gradually moving towards he has taken the road of annexing the 7 countries, and even shows no pretense to the overlord country, and wants to challenge the existence of the overlord country. And all of this was only because of the existence of Marshal Iwa, who alone changed the entire national power of the Xinyi country. It only took Marshal Iwa a few months to grow from a weak and unknown country to the quasi-big country it is today. Comparing Marshal Iwa to the Sword Master of Taiban country just makes the Sword Master a joke. Even if the person appearing on the scene now is just Marshal Yan's sister, the same is true. The Sword Master is too far behind even Jia Yan's relative status. Jia Yan's sister. How can this be? Everyone in the enemy army was stunned at this moment, looking at the obviously very young girl under the protection of the youth team from a distance. On our side, more people's expressions changed drastically. At the same time, everyone looked here. The soldiers of Xinhe Kingdom finally vaguely saw that the features and face of the protected little girl seemed to be somewhat similar to Marshal Yan who had appeared in front of the media. Look like. Is she really Marshal Yan's sister? This is not good. The company commander was the first person to react. His eyes suddenly turned red and he roared, "Everyone obeys the order. While performing the next combat mission, we must protect Her Highness Lin with all our lives. Even if the army is wiped out, Her Highness Lin cannot be in any danger, do you understand?" Clear. The faces of all the new recruits around him changed wildly, and then they thought of something, became full of mission, and roared in response without fear of death. You know, among this group of young people, 9.5 out of 10 were die-hard fans of Marshal Yan, and the other half were fans of fans. Now they know that in their own army, the little girl who has always been the petitest is actually the enemy's sword master, revealed that she was Marshal Yan's biological sister. How could they not defend her? Marshal Yi's status, his contribution to Nobue Kingdom, and his martial arts skills have already overwhelmed the young people present. It is even more imperative to protect his sister. And if it is not protected well, that thing is too big. This is Marshal Yan's biological sister. If something happens to her, no one can imagine what the consequences will be. Ha ha ha, very good. The fools from the Xinhe Kingdom actually gave us such a big gift. Just in time to capture her, our Iron Country, and even the Seven Kingdoms Alliance, will have great initiative. The sword master's eyes lit up. The long sword he executed shot across a distance of several hundred meters with lightning speed and arrived in front of the team protecting Jiolin. Jiolin's wish to quietly leave the team's protection failed, and the team members suddenly approached Jiolin's side. "Swear to protect His Highness Lin to the death." The squad leader roared angrily, then frantically gathered the energy of several colleagues, and then sprayed out a terrifying power that could only belong to positive and negative explosive power at the sword master. What a terrifying explosive power! Is this power the so-called Marshal Yan who directed you personally? It's terrifying. But the sword master raised his long sword above his head, aimed at the black energy and struck hard, but that's all. You are too weak. He is a majestic swordsman. This title is not something that a certain country can call itself. It has been agreed upon for a long time in history. Many countries on the entire continent have agreed and respected this strong man, so they unanimously agreed. The holy status is defined for it, such as the sword master, who became well known after a battle with the brave, and thus obtained the holy status. If he is also a peak heaven level powerhouse, but compared with ordinary heaven level peak powerhouses, his strength is one level higher. He is not even at starry sky level, but he is definitely on the verge of breaking through. Therefore, the team's joint efforts were able to deal with the great magician before, but now they cannot deal with the old sword master in front of them. Break. The sword edge fell, and the black explosive force that was fired at it was split in half by him. The energy exploded in the base camp below, causing both houses to collapse. After this sword attack, everyone in the team looked gloomy. Everyone knows that this sword shows that the sword master's sword is still young. If the fight continues, his team will definitely be defeated. Join forces. However, after knowing Jiolin's identity, all the Xinhe soldiers behind him also took Jiolin to heart. It should not even be said that they took Jiolin to heart, but it should be said that at this moment, the entire paratrooper phalanx they all turned to protect Jiolin. They gave up the task of capturing and suddenly charged towards the sword master without fear of death. There is nothing wrong with this strategy in the first place, because if the strongest among the enemy's troops is not dealt with first, it is impossible to continue the battle on this battlefield. The sword master only needs to defeat each one by one, and he can easily win this war. Come to attack me secretly? Your attacks can't even come close to a casual blow from a brave man. The sword master turned around and split open another black energy attack coming from behind him. He felt the intensity of this power and then laughed. It seems that the strongest team in this army is your team of young people. There is nothing to fear from the others. The energy he just split was the power of the company commander and his team. Although it was strong enough, Without mastering the explosive nature of positive and negative power, how could it be possible to compare with the team that defended Jialin? Therefore, the Juggernaut immediately determined that as long as the team guarding Jialin was eliminated, he could not only capture Jialin, an important person, but also solve this Xinhe Kingdom raid. You must know that the current battlefields of the Seven Kingdoms are full of news about the success of the Black Kingdom. The Seven Kingdoms are gradually losing confidence. If he can win the battlefield and even capture Jia Yan's biological sister, it will be a dead end. The Seven Kingdoms were breathed into new life. Damn it! How did he recognize His Highness Lin? It's normal. Marshal Jia Yan is so well known. How come other countries don't get information about his relatives? It's a pity that we don't have the strength to protect His Highness Lin. What should we do now? Your Highness Lin can't go far. Continue to protect her, and when the time comes, put His Highness in a place where she can escape. Several team members made the most correct judgment against the Juggernaut's attack again, continued to guard Jialin, and withstood the Juggernaut's vicious slashes quite embarrassedly. Although they knew they couldn't defeat the Sword Master, they tried their best and used the characteristics of explosive power to withstand several of the Sword Master's attacks. Jialin looked ugly. She was sandwiched between her tall brothers and sisters. She couldn't see the outside intelligence at all. She only knew that she flew up and fell to the ground with their energy. Reading benefits send you a cash red envelope. Follow VX Public Book Friends Base Camp to get it. But soon she lost consciousness and saw a beautiful elder sister in front of her, with blood marks on her shoulders. It turned out that the Sword Master's sword energy just now broke through the defense and hit the girl's shoulder. You can run away by yourself. I can just die by myself. Jialin is very similar to Jialin in the outside world. She has a submissive temper and some courage. She screamed immediately. Your Highness Lin, don't worry, we will protect you. The girl gritted her teeth, looked back at her, and then looked back again, continuing to resist the attack from the Sword Master. Puff. Find bookstore. However, more people were injured this time. Among the 5 people protecting Jialin, 3 of them had scars from the sword attack. Under the blood dripping, Jialin was frightened. Brother, help me! She screamed. Suddenly, a voice sounded in the little girl's heart. Humph, now you know how to call me brother? Do you think you will still dare to be naughty in the future? Ah! Jialin was stunned. She looked around dumbfounded, not knowing what was going on. Are you hallucinating? Why did I seem to hear my brother's voice just now? Elder brother. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 2585. Elder brother. Jialin looked around in disbelief, but saw nothing. I'm here. Okay, little naughty boy, do you want to help these new recruits? Think. Brother, hurry up and save them. Then do you promise to be a good boy and not run around and be obedient from now on? Promise. Puff. When Jialin's voice came out, the team members who were attracted by Jialin's voice talking to herself suddenly discovered that Jialin's body behind them erupted with earth-shaking terrifying power. Jia Yan is a being who can easily give energy to his family in the outside world. In this world, he can even do similar things easily. The difference is whether he wants to do it or not. In this world, in addition to subordinates like Adita, the people Jia Yan cares about are the virtual family in this world. They are said to be virtual, but here they also have their own personalities and general personalities. He is very similar to his family members in the outside world, which wins Jia Yan's favor and gives them the power to protect them. At this moment, it was this power that burst out of Jia Lin's body. Your team has done a great job, but your magical power only stops here. Go to hell. The Sword Master was already a little unhappy after being unable to attack for a long time, so he deliberately deviated from Jiolin's angle and directly released his special move. And under the attack of this unique skill, the team members as protectors could not stop it even if they worked together with all their lives. In other words, they could either give up on Jiolin and run away, or resist desperately, and the only result would be death. Whether they escape or die from this move, Jiolin will be caught. Just die. For the glory of the Black God. Roar. Several members of the team were covered in blood at this time, but they exerted more terrifying power than before. The captain of the team, with a smile, collected all the energy of everyone into his palms, and consciously aimed at the incoming attack power of the Sword Master, and fought against it. Bang! The Sword Master's power crushed the team's full force, and then this power also spread to the female team member at the front. This female soldier is also very young, probably 17 or 18 years old at most. This should be the best time of her youth, but she may die here. In order to protect the so-called Geo family. But she showed an attitude of duty-bound, because she knew that her sacrifice might be exchanged for a bright future for the entire Xinyi country. So when the energy attack arrived, she just closed her eyes, her heroic face full of generosity and sacrifice. But before she could feel the pain, she felt that there was power surging behind her just now. In the body of Her Highness Jiolin, a terrifying power suddenly rose up that made everyone present want to worship. The terror of this kind of power was beyond the imagination of anyone present. Once he came out, he swallowed up all the substances around him, and even the air felt like it was being swallowed up. And the power of the Sword Master had just reached the female soldier when he was attacked by this power. The whole process was unable to resist even the slightest bit, as if a pebble thrown into the lake water set off ripples. Then it disappeared. What? The Sword Master seemed to have seen the most impossible thing in the world, and his eyes widened. Not only him, but also the female soldier who was protected, all the companions around the female soldier, as well as the Xinhe Kingdom soldiers who were nearby and wanted to come over to protect them, and there were also fierce fights with Xinhe Kingdom soldiers further away. However, there was no way to annihilate the Tetsuban army, which was composed of Shinkuro soldiers. All of these people saw the scene and became stunned. This power was more than just protection. A moment after taking action, it seemed to lazily extend its tentacles to the nearby Sword Master. Confused. The Sword Master seemed to feel such an earth-shattering threat and quickly withdrew his sword. But the long sword was half a step slower. The two-handed sword that had been with him all his life and was also one of the most famous divine swords on this continent was like spring water melting away, and the tip of the sword was completely destroyed. That's right, it means annihilation, leaving no trace at all. What's this? The Sword Master's scalp was numb, and he immediately flew upside down at the fastest speed in his life. However, the speed of his upside-down flight was still unable to compare with the seemingly slow expansion, but in reality it was the power of spring water melting very quickly. Confused. This power soon climbed up the Sword Master's arm, and his arm quickly turned into particles and melted into the air. Ah! Under the severe pain, the Sword Master burst out with what was probably the most shrill scream in his life. But before he could shout any more, the power didn't even stop for a moment, and just swept through the Sword Master's body. This top powerhouse who dominated the entire continent actually dissipated into basic particles in the entire world under such an understatement. During the whole process, no one saw who attacked the Sword Master, nor did they see what kind of attack this power was. The only thing that is known is that the Juggernaut is dead. And this power seems to be black. That's right, just like the power used by the Black God. I'm afraid only the power of the gods can achieve this level, right? The Sword Master is dead. It's over, this war is over, we can't win. Whatever method they used, even the sword master can be killed easily. How can our army possibly win? The entire Iron Country's army was about to collapse. Hoo, the power just now was, Yan, Marshal Yan. The team protecting Jialin here turned around and looked at Jialin behind them, who seemed to be still releasing some power. There is a power in Her Highness Lin's body that makes people who believe in black people very kind, that is, the power of the Black God. This power may not be the Black God himself, but at least it has a very deep understanding of the Black God's power. In the entire Xinhe kingdom, they could not think of anyone who had mastered the power of the Black God to this extent, except for the existence that had always been in the mist, Marshal Yan. Well, my brother talked to me just now. It must be my brother's power. After listening to their questions, Jialin was a little confused and had to answer truthfully. Gudu. After several people knew the answer, although the answer was what they had just guessed, but the reality was before their eyes, they still swallowed in shock. It's really Marshal Yan. They all couldn't accept it. Because of this power of understatement, he killed the famous sword master on the Ruo continent like that. Although this old sword master is no longer an active sword master, his strength may not have declined at all. There are probably no strong men on this planet who can kill him simply, not even those from the Overlord country. Several strong men who have been recognized as the strongest by the world are no exception. But Marshal Yan did it. And it wasn't a head-on battle. He himself was probably still thousands of kilometers away, but he accomplished the scene from afar. Several team members who were extremely shocked looked at each other, and then smiled bitterly. Who said that Marshal Yan left his sister alone? I'm afraid that Marshal Yan didn't believe that his sister was in danger, so he let her run around on the battlefield outside. With such power to protect them, if it were them, even the Overlord country would dare to try. My brother said that the sword master has been killed with his help. The next war depends on us. Jialin seemed to be listening to something again, and then said helplessly. Brother, really, he has already taken action. Why not just help him to the end, and they have to risk their lives? However, her brother is very tired. As a younger sister, she can't overwork him. Maybe she is helping her now because her brother wasted a lot of energy to do it. So Jialin didn't ask for anything, but conveyed her brother's order. Yes. Several young men and women from the protection team quickly clasped their fists and raised their hands. Even though this order was relayed from Jialin's mouth, they still did not dare to neglect it and maintain their respect for Marshal Jia Yan. Because this is an order issued by Marshal Yan himself. Watching the paratroopers of Xinyi Kingdom reorganize themselves again and charge towards the front-line soldiers of Tetsuban Kingdom who were already slightly collapsed, Jialin fell straight from the mid-air. She also has considerable strength, all of which were given to her by Jia Yan. So she herself can control gliding to some extent. Brother took action. So everything I did was under his nose. Humph. Jialin just felt a little boring. Originally, she was quite proud and full of excitement to be able to go to the battlefield. But after my brother's attack just now, I suddenly felt nothing at all. Even the so-called sword master, who was taught in the textbooks when she was studying, was killed by her brother with unfathomable energy. For Jialin, this was like pouring water on her excited emotions. Cold water. This is really exciting. Go home, wait until brother really knocks down the entire planet as he said when we last chatted with me, then I can come out and play. Jialin was bored, sitting on the edge of the battlefield, looking at the war ahead. For a moment, she seemed to be suddenly no longer interested in the war in front of her. This is the so-called mentality of a superior, right? Haha, this little brat. Jia Yan sat in the office, dumbfounded. Okay, master, you scolded Edisha. Jia Yan was smiling to himself, but Edisha's ears were very good and she heard it. She jumped up and pointed at Jia Yan to make some noise. She was so irritating. She helped Jia Yan every day and was forced to exercise her energy every day, but she was still called a brat. Her mentality is broken. I'm not talking about you, I'm talking about my sister, from this world. Lady Lin. Adisha understood Jia Yan instantly, or even if Jia Yan really scolded her, she could only accept it. Who makes Jia Yan the master and she the helper? Well, she ran out to play before and went to join the war. No, I just gave her a hand and helped her a little. Wow, participating in the war is fun, isn't it? Master, can I go to the war like this? When Edisha heard this, she realized that even Jia Lin could go to the war. How fun it was! She wanted to go too. After all, although she followed Jia Yan in many wars when she was the intelligence brain of the Aditha, she was all involved in the Aditha, using artillery fire or simply escaping. But now that she was born as a human, she really wanted to try participating in the battle from a biological perspective. Would it be more fun? So he was envious. Don't even think about it. You are too weak now. Besides, which battlefield has children participating in the battle? Lin Sama is also a child. She is already 13 years old, and your body is only 5 years old. Woo! Edisha got angry and kicked the teddy bear over, then picked it up and punched it with her small fists. Jia Yan discovered that after this little Hineo was reborn as a child, he seemed to be developing into a violent Lolita. This is a good situation. It saves you from having to worry about this little guy being bullied when he goes out. If he is violent, at least he knows how to protect himself. Well, after the Battle of Duanshao where the 7 kingdoms gathered together, although the 7 kingdoms still have most of the national strength and strong men, the self-confidence of our recruits should also increase, and the 7 kingdoms will almost be pacified. Let's plan the next war. Jia Yan took the pen and paper and reminded Edisha. Yeah, Edisha is indeed Jia Yan's best helper. She never gets emotional when she needs help. He obediently put his short legs on the chair, then pursed his baby fat face and started writing and drawing. Jia Yan looked at her and then picked up the file. The name of this document reads, 57 Plans for Conquering the Overlord Country. Under these 57 plans, there is the author of this document, and the 3 characters Edisha are printed on it. That's right, Edisha listed 57 plans for Jia Yan to conquer the Overlord Country. It's good to have an assistant. She gave me 57 plans directly. If it were me, it would be difficult to think of just one. She directly gave me 57, and she looked relaxed and happy, tisk tisk. Jia Yan already knew the gap between himself and Edisha, but that time was when Edisha was a smart brain and had the bonus of a computer. He also thought that after Edisha became a smart brain, even if it's close, it's not too bad, but I didn't expect that someone who was reborn as a girl would still have such overall planning ability. It seems that she must have an innate ability. If it's not easy to compare, then don't compare. Jia Yan shook his head, opened the contents of the file, and began to read quickly. If you want to take over the entire planet, the biggest difficulty and the last difficulty is nothing more than the Overlord. I'm afraid each of these 50-odd plans has pros and cons. If I choose any one, there are advantages and disadvantages, but I want to ensure the minimum point, that is, this planet does not need to be destroyed too much, and the energy must not be destroyed as much as possible, otherwise the meaning of my war will disappear. Reborn as an Interstellar Giant Mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 2586. Jia Yan's purpose of becoming Jia Yan on this planet is very simple. It's not that he wants to enjoy human life again, or that he wants to live a good life with his false family in this world. The reason why he was so cautious was simply that he did not want to seize as much of the world's white god power as possible without attracting the attention of the white dolphins. Of course, the scattered black god's power also needs to be collected. As long as the two powers are almost collected, he will be able to surpass the White Dolphin in strength. If things go well with the subordinates, it will be unclear who will win when the two sides finally fight. Everything is related to who can get the last treasure of this world after they decide the winner, the opportunity to improve their strength. The outcome of the Seven Kingdoms War came quite quickly, just as Jia Yan expected. This raid only used a small number of recruits, but each recruit was responsible for the border headquarters of a country they faced. When the troops are weaker than the opponent, the strength of the individual soldiers is also far weaker than the opponent. Judging from all the previous war data on this planet, there is no possibility of winning this kind of war. But this time it was different. This war was almost one-sided. It's not about turning to the Seven Kingdoms border headquarters, which is far stronger than Xinyi country in both quantity and quality. Instead, he unexpectedly fell to the Nobue kingdom, which no matter how you looked at it, could not be stronger than the Seven Kingdoms border army. The joint combat method of the Nobue nation troops is a terrifying tactic that far exceeds anyone's expectations. After joining forces, the combat effectiveness of each team has reached or even exceeded the strength of the top powerhouses. Countless teams mean there will be countless masters. As a result, ordinary troops with almost no resistance against masters can only be passively beaten. If it were not for the advantages in numbers and fortifications, the result of defeat might come faster. But even if it didn't come so quickly, the ending was still doomed. When the most difficult Taiborn paratrooper assault force reported the defeat of the Taibankuo border headquarters, and even the old swordsman who was famous in the mainland was defeated, the results on other battlefields were reported almost at the same time. Taibankuo won, I know, but did the other 6 major countries also win? Jia Yan picked up the good news in his hand, looked at it indifferently, and then put it down indifferently. The frosty female secretary soldier in front of him looked at the young man in front of her curiously. She knew that this young man really had an old heart in his heart. She had followed Jia Yan for a long time and had never seen him before. What's the change in this young marshal's expression? Wow, I win, Marshal, can I have 2 more popsicles? Adisha was very excited and jumped up and down with joy. You, don't you know that eating too many popsicles is bad for your health? Then I'll just take one. It's my strategy. Oh well. That's great, Adisha has some popsicles to eat. Aditha trotted out excitedly, her bare feet clicking crisply. Marshal, aren't you a little happy? You must know that this is the battle of the 7 kingdoms. Our country defeated the 7 large countries, which is different from the 13 small countries we fought before. The secretary couldn't help but said as if expecting a different reaction from Jia Yan. Oh, is it different from the 13 kingdoms? I don't think so. Even if we defeat the overlord country, I won't feel any different. Jia Yan calmly picked up the cup and gently he sipped the tea in the cup. The secretary looked at Jia Yan again in disbelief and found that there was no pride or arrogance in his eyes, but just plainness. Knowing that he could not really move the young marshal's expression, the secretary shook his head helplessly and finally resigned. It makes me excited. I'm afraid I'll have heart problems in my life. Jia Yan chuckled, and then walked to his secret office. There were a lot of resources inside, which were brought in due to new raids, and he could have a full meal. The war should be over soon. With my joint strategy, it would be a shame if the troops of Nobue Kingdom cannot even suppress this planet. Jia Yan knows that this war has come to an end since he trained the new recruits. It seems that there are many big countries in the outside world, and there is a giant like the Overlord that dominates the world, but his class is really there are too many opponents who are higher than this. The whole world, to him and the White Dolphins, is a world similar to a game world. Oh, that's not right. In fact, they are the creators of this world. To be precise, they should be said to be godlike existences. After the war on this planet is over, it will be the turn of events in the starry sky. Once I get there, as long as I continue to take big steps, I will focus on attracting the attention of the white dolphins, so before attracting their attention and discovering my identity, we have to gather all the subordinates as much as possible to fight a big battle. Jia Yan thought deeply about the above questions. Wow da da da, there are popsicles to eat, Adisha is so happy. But there was a little kid running around happily beside him, making Jia Yan unable to think deeply. He picked up the little one by the back collar, opened the window, picked up Adisha who was holding a popsicle, and threw it out the window. Wow wow wow, Adisha is flying. It's so fun. The sound of Adisha flying away could still be heard in the airs. Throughout the marshal's mansion, many people were stunned to see this scene, and then they all smiled secretly. To these subordinates or servants in the mansion, Marshal Jia Yan is a godlike existence. But since the little genius Adisha came to the mansion, the entire marshal's mansion has become more colorful and full of laughter. Almost every subordinate and servant in the mansion has talked with this lively little think tank. She is also willing to make friends with anyone, and even the ants on the ground can chat with her. And what is even more surprising is that this little chief of staff also looks fearless in front of the aloof Marshal Jia Yan. He is often doted on by the marshal and scolded, and is thrown out of the office every day as a routine operation. I didn't expect that this time it actually flew out. Of course, no one doubts that this cute little girl will be in danger, because there are dangerous things that the marshal cannot do. Everyone can see that this unsmiling marshal is very fond of Chief of Staff Adita. But they probably never thought that the little girl who flew out was stuck in the air by herself. Adisha has devoured energy enough to be able to fly. Adisha can fly. Throw Adisha away. If Adisha doesn't come home, she'll be eating ice cream outside. Adisha was so angry that she floated down into the sky, and then visited the streets to interview the people. Hey, hello, I have money, I can buy food. Boss, look down, Adisha is very short, you can't see it? He, it smells so good. Adisha is going home to plan war missions. Bye. Adisha was walking alone on the street, and unknowingly, several men in black appeared behind her. They were all experts in protecting Adisha. She had a lot of fun today. Adisha, when you've had enough fun, come back to work. Next, we will carry out mission number 53. Well, Adisha is going back. Adisha had a great harvest. She spent a long time walking on the street and harvested a lot of food. She also gained a lot of love from adults. Some people even asked whose child this was. It was so cute. After all, she is quite cute, and she behaves gracefully and gracefully. Although her words are a bit stinky, she is a stinker with an explosion of cuteness. It's natural that he is loved by countless people on the street. It's so fun. Adisha will go out to play more often in the future. Aditha returned to the marshal's mansion with her bare feet. If you look carefully at her little feet that climb directly onto the steps of the house, you can see that they are not dirty at all, because when she walks, she hardly touches the ground and is completely suspended in the sky. She is already very strong. Although she is not as powerful as a normal starry sky warrior outside, she is almost equal to an invincible warrior on this planet. Although she doesn't like to practice, she can't stand Jia Yan who forces her to devour her strength every day. I'm back. Adisha raised her hands in the air and roared in the marshal's mansion with a mighty voice. I saw that she was covered with all kinds of food, and she also bought a small backpack on her back, which was full of her trophies, including food and toys. Jumping back to Jia Yan's office, Jia Yan was writing something at the table. Have you adapted to your life identity now? Does it feel more fun than when you were a brain? Jia Yan asked directly without raising his head. Yes, Adisha is very happy to say that Adisha is a human being, the food is delicious, and the toys are also very fun. Adisha nodded her head, took out her trophies with great interest, pointed them at them and introduced them to Jia Yan. Okay, it's enough to have played. Now work properly for me, the master. The next step is to unify the planet. Yeah, Adisha is working. Adisha nodded vigorously, but when she left, she didn't forget to pick up a bunch of snacks and skip to work. This outing was regarded as Jia Yan giving her a holiday, and it also gave Adisha some motivation. Of course, Jia Yan probably didn't expect that this was just the first step in Adisha's gradual conquest of the Xinhe kingdom, and even conquering the entire planet. Who makes her both cute and awesome. The key point is that she has no heirs at all. Recently, some people in the public have shown their love for her. I also have many little fans. Jia Yan and Aidisha here lived a very stable and peaceful life. But that's not the case outside. People who believe in the Black Kingdom are used to winning. Regarding this great victory of the Seven Kingdoms, many people do not know the details and difficulties involved, and they do not know what has been done. However, the people of other countries, especially the people of the Seven Countries, were shocked by this defeat, and they began to feel a strong lack of confidence in their country's combat effectiveness. You know, their army was numerically superior, and they were defeated by the inexperienced paratroopers formed by Nobuenobahi. The comparison of deaths on both sides is surprisingly exaggerated on every national front. The exaggeration is that the number of deaths among the border troops of the Seven Countries is extremely high, while the number of new recruits from the Nobue Kingdom is extremely low. The most exaggerated figure is that of a certain medium-sized country. Their border troops reported an exaggerated figure of more than 50,000 casualties on their own side, while the Black Country only suffered more than 100 casualties. You must know that the casualties on the Xinhe country are real. Even the scratches on fingers were calculated to get into it. However, the statistics of the troops of the small country may not be so real. In order to make others believe the casualties are not that exaggerated, and they may even have underestimated the number by a lot. The terror of the Shinkuro army was finally fully demonstrated. Within the Seven Kingdoms, it was finally no longer a threat to the Xinhe kingdom, and was only regarded as a small quarrel, something destined to be killed by their own country. In many cities that were relatively close to the battlefield, people began to flee in panic. Since Xinhe kingdom has won the border battle, it is destined to occupy the territory of their cities. Although I don't know whether Xinhe kingdom can reach the hinterland of its own country, these areas on the border are really unprotectable. A large number of chaotic refugees, just like the previous dozen small countries, started to move, and then brewed even greater chaos. Under the domino-like effect, the people of the Seven Countries were panicked, and the entire interior was in chaos. This is something that Xinhaiguo has already experienced. They had already mastered this skill when they bulldozed the 13 kingdoms. Especially under certain coping methods taught by Edisha, the propaganda machine was running like crazy. A large number of propaganda slogans targeting the people and ordinary troops of the Seven Countries were widely spread. Countless people have believed it, and these propaganda slogans naturally believe that the Black Kingdom is invincible and that the Seven Kingdoms are doomed to fail. Speaking of which, they do not say how good it is to believe in the Black Kingdom. But it is a profound understanding that Xinhe Kingdom will definitely win the battle of the Seven Kingdoms. The people began to hoard food and fight against the wartime government. Two of the Seven Countries, which were already poorly managed, started fighting among themselves without waiting for the Xinhe Kingdom's troops to advance. As a result, these two countries, which were in panic, quickly accepted a large number of territories and cities after Xinhe Kingdom finally slowly sent several well-trained troops of 100,000 people to take over. Within 2 days, 100,000 people invaded the territory of about 3 or 4 small countries with a population of hundreds of millions. This is no longer a myth, but something that the Xinhe army has actually done. The smooth advancement and the skills in using various tactics made all the countries on the planet feel chilling. Is this still a weak country that was built out of a pile of small countries? It's really strong, isn't it? Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 2587. No matter in terms of combat effectiveness or understanding of war, we are absolutely the world's great powers, okay. And it may also be the combat effectiveness and understanding of war that only a superpower like the hegemonic country has. Horrible. The country on the entire planet, which is the weakest among the 7 countries and has the most internal and external difficulties, was completely swallowed up by the Black Country. When the government went into exile overseas, it could no longer sit still. The overlord country held an emergency press conference after the country was engulfed by the Black Country. At the beginning of the press conference, the diplomatic officials of the overlord country, as always, severely condemned Nobue's words of annexing other countries. But for journalists who have to publish this kind of rhetoric every once in a while, their ears have already become calluses after hearing it, but every time it is a roar. The overlord country supports at most some weapons and equipment, but it is also believed the Black Country's bulldozing and polishing will not achieve the good effect that the overlord country said. But this time it was different. In view of Xinhai country's aggressive external expansion posture, our country will be forced to enter an active defense process. We will not rule out the possibility of marching into the remaining 5 countries within 3 days. I would like to advise Xinhai country that external expansion is a major problem in the entire world. If the enemy continues to be stubborn, I believe that the Black Country will fall into a situation that will never be recovered. Please take care of yourself. For the first time, the diplomatic rhetoric this time did not contain many harsh words. But what was revealed in the words made reporters who were familiar with the overlord country feel as if they had been injected with blood. Because they know that when the overlord speaks in this tone, it is the time when they become truly angry and decide to take action officially. The overlord country is an invincible country on this planet. This has been proven in many wars. Even though several other countries in the world are also known as first-class powers, none of them dare to challenge the overlord country's status. And if such a country comes out and declares that it wants to send troops, then it means that they are truly preparing to send troops. The world is shaken. There are various interpretations, all kinds of passionate rhetoric, and various media outlets are frantically reciting the overlord's public statement as if it's the new year. Even in the Xinhai kingdom, because the overlord country publicly stated the possibility of sending troops, many elderly citizens who were accustomed to the overlord country's strength also felt frightened. They began to comfort senior officials in the media and the internet, and they must not interact with the overlord country. Evil, otherwise there will be no recovery. This rather cowardly statement was even circulated among senior officials. There is no way, for the older generation, the threat from the overlord is so terrifying that they have forgotten the bravery of their own soldiers. The overlord? It's too late to start a war now. Jia Yan was in the office, casually throwing aside the declaration report of the overlord country, lazily. Marshal, what the overlords say is usually unobtrusive, but this time they made such formal remarks, just like when they attacked the world's third most powerful country 20 years ago, they became quite serious. At that time, the third power was the powerful country has now been divided into 7 or 8 countries. This is the result of war with the overlord. You cannot underestimate the enemy. Jia Yan's expressionless secretary became quite talkative today and seemed very dissatisfied with Jia Yan's reaction. No need to say more, stand down. Besides, I don't want to see you gesticulating on my decision anymore. You also know the result of the last secretary. Jia Yan frowned and asked the secretary to step back. Yes. The secretary had no choice but to leave the office. This secretary, who was originally quite obedient, unexpectedly dared to question my orders recently. Master, Adisha knows that. She is afraid of the overlord, isn't she? Judging from the national combat power on this planet, this is not without reason. Adisha has been sitting on the small table next to her, biting the tip of her pen and writing and drawing, as if a child was doodling, but those who understand will know that the words she writes are not graffiti. Although it is not very pretty, it is well written. These things all guide the way forward for this Shinkuro kingdom. Yes, Edisha is the smartest. Jia Yan praised him. Yeah, Edisha is smart. Does the master want to reward Edisha for a day of fun? If you can't do it in one day, you can do it in half a day. Is half a day and 2 hours okay? Half a day and an hour. Deal. From now on, Edisha is going out to play. Edisha didn't even give Jia Yan a chance to refute, she just dropped her pen and ran out the door, as if she was afraid that Jia Yan would hold her back. Forget about the secretary, Edisha, who has her own ideas more and more recently, has also become less well-behaved, haha. Jia Yan sat on the chair, touched his nose, and then smiled bitterly. But living people are interesting. The look of this little kid is very similar to that of Edisha when she was a brain, but she is more lively and her actions are more unpredictable. Overall, she is still the little Hineo who only thinks about herself. Jia Yan believes that this will not change even if 10,000 years pass. Edisha went out to have fun again, but Jia Yan picked up the war plan. Everyone in the world thinks that the Black Kingdom has destroyed 2 of the 7 countries and will fall into a quagmire next. Even the Overlord country thinks that they will have a chance to send troops to the remaining 5 countries in 3 days, but Jia Yan finished reading Editha's mission number 53, which was also the 53rd plan to conquer the Overlord country. The current progress is completely consistent with the rhythm described by Edisha, and even the Overlord's response seems to be within the plan of this 5-year-old girl. This is probably the biggest difference after Edisha became a real life and when she was a brain. The intelligent brain can quickly generate a large number of plans and possibilities, but if the intelligent brain is required to select the most likely executions from thousands of plans, it cannot afford and will not provide such plans. But after becoming a living body, Edisha had her own feelings and her own ability to judge. As a result, she was able to come up with 57 plans based on her memory and personal senses. There may be mistakes in these plans, but they are definitely much better than what I did myself. This is also a change of Edisha. Maybe I will get an assistant worth looking forward to in the future. Jia Yan knew that the relationship between himself and Edisha was not as simple as the person who gave the advice and the person who was being helped. He will not only consider Edisha's plan. If there is anything he wants to add or thinks is wrong, he can overturn all 57 copies. Edisha will not say anything. As early as when he was weak, he had a similar situation with Ji now Edisha. Jia Yan felt that all his actions were controlled by Edisha, as if he was being played by Ji now. But he was able to resolve the matter at that time and minimize the impact of Editha on him. Now that he has become a domain lord, there is no chance that he will make the same mistake again. It's not okay to just listen to her, but it's also wrong to not believe her blindly. There is a balance in the middle, which I need to master slowly in the future. Jia Yan smiled calmly. This is also a small matter. The initiative is in your own hands. Are you still worried about any accidents? Within 3 days. Jia Yan's vision, or in other words, the course of the war that Edisha had already thought about, was turned into a prophecy by her. On the first day after the 2 countries were destroyed, it was also the second day after the Overlord had just said that it might enter the battlefield of the 5 countries. It was as if Xinhe Kingdom suddenly showed all his fighting power and became extremely crazy in the remaining 5 major countries. They were originally new soldiers, but after entering the enemy's hinterland and participating in many battles, large and small, the young soldiers quickly became veterans and quickly advanced their steps. Although the soldiers have joint tactics, the fatigue on the way cannot be solved by joint tactics, especially the young recruits. They have not experienced such strong physical exertion in the past, so most of the losses are lost in the advancement of fatigue. On the first day, tens of millions of soldiers rushed into various cities in the 5 countries like tigers among sheep. However, the long march resulted in the loss of about 200,000 troops. These were not casualties but injuries due to fatigue, and they had to retreat to field hospitals and safe places to recuperate. Of course, there were also casualties. The number of soldiers who died from overwork was as high as 500 today, and was highly criticized by many military scientists who opposed Jia Yan. This was also the day with the greatest loss in the entire battle for Xinyi Kingdom. But the harvest of this day was also huge. At the price of overworked 200,000 soldiers, tens of millions of soldiers pushed forward like crazy, using various tools, even relying on strong men to carry them and fly. In short, all kinds of methods were used. In the end, tens of millions of soldiers, approximately 1/3 of the land of the remaining 5 countries was directly bulldozed. Over 1 billion people, during today's crazy advancement, have been brought under the jurisdiction of Xinyi country. A large number of soldiers were left behind to take over various local functions and prevent possible counterattacks in the ruled areas. Afterwards, there were only about 7 million troops left, and they suddenly marched towards the remaining 5 countries again. At the same time, in the Shinkoku Kingdom, the army announced in a high-profile manner that it seemed that it had trained 10 million new soldiers again and would be sent directly to the battlefield in the next 2 days. The next day, before the world tremor caused by the previous day's operation stopped, the non-stop 7 million troops, trapped and exhausted, still continued to rush towards the enemy country again without stopping. Today, Shinkuro Kingdom has suffered even greater losses. About 300,000 soldiers have fallen behind due to fatigue. The number of casualties due to illness or battle has finally exceeded 1,000 for the first time. This is also the reason why the entire Shinkuro Kingdom army has launched so many wars. For the first time since then, more than 1,000 people were injured in one day. This time, not only foreign military commentators, but also some domestic military commentators in Xinhai also pointed out in their respective online channels whether Marshal Jia Yan's instructions were too hasty. But without exception, the articles disappeared not long after these comments were posted, and the commentators themselves quickly accepted the military's support. After that, in short, these people became restrained after returning home. Many. But even with some discordant remarks, Xinhai Kingdom still achieved an unprecedented victory today. In the previous wars, the 7 major countries, or now the 5 major nations, had already lost a large number of their elites in the war with the new recruits of the Xinyi Kingdom, such as the sword masters of Taiban Kingdom, the sages after the Western Kingdom, and the guardians. The holy magician of the Heart Kingdom, and the great cultivator of the Songlin Kingdom. The deaths of these well-known strong men were all caused by the attacks of super-powerful recruits or the siege of a large number of recruits. At most, they only exchanged the casualties of dozens of new recruits from Xinhai Kingdom, and even caused substantial damage to Xinhai Kingdom. Even the loss of troops above can't be done. Without the elite, Xinhai Kingdom has once again replenished its military resources, and the quality is not bad. Under the previous circumstances, the 5 major countries have long been struggling to survive. So the second day was like the last straw that broke the camel's back. The 5 major countries finally couldn't hold on today. They couldn't even hold on and wait for the overlord's support. The next day they were hunted down by 7 million troops in hot pursuit, and all of them collapsed. Those who could fly fled to the border, while those who could not fly knelt down and surrendered. A large number of troops, such as the Western Kingdom, which is known as the strongest country in the 7 kingdoms, may even be the strongest country in this continent, but under the resistance of tens of millions of soldiers summoned for emergency recruitment, they cannot defeat 150 soldiers. Tens of thousands of troops from the Black Kingdom threw away their helmets and armor, and within a radius of several thousand kilometers, they were all fleeing troops. Finally, on this second day alone, it felt like the war was almost over. except for a certain medium-sized country among the 5 major countries, which unexpectedly resisted a force of 500,000 men from the Xinyi kingdom. All the troops of the other 4 major countries were dispersed and turned into small groups of troops to resist. The Xinhe kingdom troops pursued the borders of major countries and cut a large number of enemy troops into small pieces that were not connected to each other. After that, they only needed to nibble away a little bit like making dumplings to end the entire war. At this moment, the Overlord's troops are still rapidly gathering. You must know that the Overlord country clearly knows that it may be facing the most terrifying enemy of a small country in history, so they have assembled quickly enough. There is even a fleet that has already embarked on the journey to this continent. But no one expected that the Xinhe kingdom would advance so quickly. 2 days ago, the 5 major countries still had most of the land in their hands. But only 2 days have passed, and the 3rd day has not arrived. All the 5 countries have been defeated with only a little bit of land left, and they are barely surviving. The Overlord country is in chaos. The world is also messy. All the countries on this planet are trembling under the crazy offensive and results of Xinhe kingdom in the past 2 days. In 2 days, these 5 countries were almost wiped out. You know, this is an above-average country among the 5 countries, and can even be called a second-rate power. Their land is so vast that it would take many days for ordinary people to get from one day to the other, even if they walk or take a car or plane. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 2588. But these 5 major countries were almost destroyed in 2 days by Xinhe kingdom's offensive. You can't run that fast, right? Don't you guys resist? The whole world is staring at the Overlord's fleet heading to this continent. Let's see now what this fleet does. It is said that the 2 major ports in the western country are still in their hands. If the Overlord country lands at these ports, there is still a chance. The issue is, do they dare? Everyone from the Western Kingdom, our army will arrive at noon tomorrow, hold on. Unexpectedly, the Overlord's military declaration in the afternoon made the whole world excited again. Countless people and high-level officials in the country felt their blood boiling with excitement. Some people also had strong fear in their hearts. It also aroused many people's fear of past memories. No matter how powerful the Xinhe kingdom is now, it is still far less powerful than the Overlord country has accumulated over the years. Now, this hegemonic country that has been dormant for a long time is finally showing its fangs. The target of showing its fangs is the newly powerful country that has caused an uproar on the entire planet recently, Nobue country. This Xinhe country is a country that makes others tremble with fear. In just a few months, it directly annexed the huge land on this continent from a small and unknown country. If we talk about their combat effectiveness, if many countries were unconvinced at first, then the way they conquered the 7 kingdoms this time and the combat effectiveness of their troops made countless countries remain silent and unable to even say harsh words. The war between the Xinhe country and the Overlord country was originally completely disproportionate, but after this war, it was considered by many countries to be a good show. Other countries that had been looking forward to this good show finally witnessed the stage when the show was served, and began to feel ecstatic one by one. Anyway, when these 2 countries stage a war, other countries will only be happy, because this is definitely a battle between generals and kings. Even if the Black country is bound to lose, it will definitely bring an unprecedented blow to the Overlord country's national strength. Maybe in a few years, the hegemonic country will be pulled down by a first-class powerful country and fall from the clouds. It's time for the world to change to the most powerful country. In the afternoon, the Overlord's fleet rushed to the Western Sea and finally arrived at the Western Seaport. And they were extremely depressed to find that at this port, the defeated soldiers of the Western Kingdom who should have been all over the army, waiting for them to join them, had already disappeared. The entire port was already filled with Xinhai soldiers who were waiting in full formation. They are people who believe in the Black Kingdom. Damn it, these losers from the Western Kingdom, can't they even resist for half a day? What now? Are we still logged in? Landing. We are the invincible Overlord's army. How can a mere Xinhai army with a partial division compare with us, let alone stop us? Yes. Even though the soldiers of the Black Country had roughly taken over the port, and even the protective fortifications were almost taken over, the Overlord still did not believe in the evil and rushed towards the port. Tom. When approaching the sea area of about 10 kilometers, both sides had already used long-range artillery attacks. In other words, the two sides could attack each other as early as hundreds of kilometers away from the sea, but at that time, the Xinyi Kingdom did not have the energy to deal with such a distant opponent, while the Overlord country did not know what the battle situation was like here and did not dare to bomb friendly forces at will. Now they are within 10 kilometers apart, completely within the range of artillery fire from both sides. On the one hand, there is the Nobue Kingdom's troops that have just occupied the port, and on the other hand, there is the Overlord's armada, which is already preparing to attack. In the battle ratio between the two sides, the Overlord's side definitely has the advantage. The artillery fire of the Xinhai army has never been too strong, and their weapons and equipment are also very backward, so in a battle at this distance, our fleet will definitely have a great advantage. As for the Overlord's fleet, the other party is quite clear about the strengths and weaknesses of the Xinhai Kingdom's troops. Their advantage lies in the quality of their weapons and personnel, all of which are in high positions. Since the Xinhai Kingdom has just occupied the port of the Western Kingdom, it has good defensive fortifications, and most of the defense work must have been destroyed in the previous battle. Under this situation, the Xinhai Kingdom's troops are absolutely at a huge disadvantage. Of course, if Xinhai country had only disadvantages, it would have been destroyed by so many countries long ago. Their advantages are also obvious and simple. That is, their team fighting capacity is unprecedentedly powerful. According to intelligence, even if the soldiers of the Black Country are just ordinary soldiers, as long as they join forces, they will become top powerhouses. Even the masters are extremely afraid of them. But the problem is that such a naval battle is probably not a place where troops with outstanding combat effectiveness like Nobue Kingdom can show their advantages. This is also the reason why the hegemonic country dares to go to war. Bang! Along with large areas of gunpowder smoke, the entire port pier was covered with a large number of shell fragments. The explosion caused the entire earth to tremble with countless pieces of gravel and shells, shooting in all directions. Damn it, people from this Overlord country really dare to attack us. Defense. The team joins forces on the spot, and those with shelters hide behind them. Try to ensure that personnel do not suffer serious losses due to this bombing. The entire Xinhai army only numbered more than 5,000 people at most. This was the force sent by Jia Yanti to attack the port. He had already expected that an extremely tragic battle would occur at this port, so he had already sent people to attack the port. Most of the Western Kingdom warships where they were located were destroyed by a sneak attack. But he still didn't expect that the Overlord had already sent a fleet to parade on the sea. It announced that it would join the war in the morning and came in the afternoon. As a result, the entire war fell into chaos. Marshal Jia Yan, the Overlord's fleet launched a bombing on our army at the port of the Western Kingdom. Because we did not have strong long-range means, we were passively beaten. The secretary rushed to the marshal's office where Jia Yan was located and told Jia Yan the above information anxiously. "Oh? Are you going to fight without declaring it? There's no need to rush." In the office, Jia Yan raised his head calmly, and then lowered his head. It turned out that he was teaching Edisha some cultivation techniques, writing and drawing on paper, and the little guy listened very carefully, and didn't even react to the information the secretary told her. These two are the most powerful beings in the entire Xinhe kingdom, but they don't seem to have the slightest interest in the progress of the war. The secretary's expression turned ugly. If she hadn't remembered that Jia Yan had told her not to interfere in so many military matters, she might have cursed loudly at this moment. Is this still the Marshal Yan whom the people and soldiers believe? Do you not care about the lives of the soldiers? Okay, just practice like this. It should be the most suitable way for your body. Okay, Adisha knows. Aditha shouted with a smile, then stood up and jumped up and down, her body looking much lighter. The secretary was a little surprised, because she felt that after the little girl stood up, she released some amazing power from her body. Of course, the secretary also had the power of cultivation, so she felt it very clearly at the moment. But this obvious power was far above hers. This is what shocked the secretary. You know, although little Edisha is smart, she is only a little over 5 years old at most. How can such a little kid be better than herself? Okay Edisha, don't jump. The secretary's information said that the overlord country came to attack our troops. This is something you didn't plan for the 53rd mission. You can clean up the mess yourself now. Okay. Small problem. Adisha jumped up on her little feet, then looked at the secretary, took her hand, and pulled the secretary towards her small desk. Her personal small desk is a pocket-sized table. The adults standing next to it seem a little funny, as if they are playing house with the children. After Kutisha ran here, she sat down on the chair and swayed her little feet under the table. Then she took out a pen and paper and started writing and drawing. In less than 2 minutes, she stuffed the paper into the secretary's desk. In hand. Take it and ask the soldiers at the port to fight like this, and you will win. Adisha's words made the secretary couldn't help but put the thread on the paper in his hand. The handwriting on the paper clearly looks like a child's graffiti. Many people would not be able to tell what she wrote if they didn't look carefully. But as the exclusive secretary of these two people, she can still understand them. After just a few glances and short words, the secretary caught the eye. Then she raised her head, ready to look at the genius chief of staff in admiration, but she saw that she had already opened the drawer. Quietly took out a snack from it and stuffed it into his little mouth. Marshal Jia Yan, Lady Adisha is stealing. The secretary couldn't help but betray Adisha, whom she had admired so much just now. Adisha. It's not me. I didn't eat. You hurt me. I won't help you anymore. Adisha quickly spat out the snacks in her mouth and glared at the secretary, as if the secretary had done something evil. Lady Adisha, Lady Jia Yan, I will be resigning now. The war is urgent. After getting their understanding, she took the information and left as if she was running away. Adisha turned back and looked at Jia Yan quietly, squatted on the ground again, picked up the snack she had just spit out, blew the dust on it, stuffed it carefully into her small mouth, and bit it, showing a happy smile. Boom! The battle at the port is still in full swing. A large number of soldiers did not have normal bunkers and were thus exposed to the threat of enemy artillery fire. Have the instructions from above not been issued yet? We can't stand it any longer. Damn it, the bastards of this overlord country actually started a war without declaring it. The entire port was covered by artillery fire, and a large number of soldiers could only bear the devastation of shrapnel under the enemy's artillery fire because they did not find a suitable bunker. Fortunately, the strongest point of the joint strategy is defense. The most basic principle of Jia Yan's guidance to these recruits was that it was impossible for these recruits to be as good as other countries' elite soldiers in terms of combat experience, so the only way to make them more outstanding was not to use too many. The place for experience lies in defense. He directly taught the soldiers defense to the highest level. Especially when they join forces, the defense of these soldiers has reached the highest level on the planet. Together, even a strong man like the Sword Master can't kill a team of them with one blow. This shows that unless some of the most taboo weapons in this world are used, or they are hit head-on by artillery shells, even a small team will not be able to die under the bombardment of the Overlord's fleet. This also caused the Overlord troops who had been bombing in the distance to feel dumbfounded after the strong men sensed the life energy here. Report: this Xinhei Kingdom's troops actually have no casualties. How is it possible? Our saturation attack can't even kill a single Xinhei soldier. The commander of the fleet's face immediately darkened. For the Overlord, what they are most proud of, apart from their well-trained military, is that their weapons and artillery are the strongest on the planet. Now, under a saturation attack, not even a single soldier from the Xinhei Kingdom could be killed. It was simply too embarrassing. Go on, I don't believe it anymore. I believe that the soldiers of the Black Country are still invulnerable. After all, the commander-in-chief of the Overlord's fleet was not a fool. After knowing the defensive capabilities of the Xinyi Kingdom's troops, he also measured the terrifying combat effectiveness of the Xinyi Kingdom's troops and did not rashly let his troops come to seize the port directly. Instead, they continued to shoot from a long distance. Anyway, the artillery fire from the Shinoka troops was like scratching an itch for them. When it comes to operating weapons, we can see the disadvantage of believing that all the Black Country troops are new recruits. Even though many recruits have been trained, but after actually arriving on the battlefield, they still operate unfamiliar weapons from the Western country. This directly reduces their operational capabilities by a notch. Let alone hitting a fleet 10 kilometers away, even if they hit a ship hundreds of meters away, they will probably be in a hurry and miss it in a long time. Therefore, it is natural for the Overlord country to ignore the long-range counterattack of the Black Country. Besides, Nobue country doesn't have many long-range weapons. But just when they were complacent, they thought that even if the soldiers of the Black Country were invulnerable, they would definitely be unable to sustain themselves under the saturation attack from their own side, resulting in a large number of casualties, and then they would occupy the port. When? Puff. Puff puff. I saw countless figures rising into the air on the port that was under attack. Ah! What's going on? So many strong men. There are not so many strong men. They are the joint forces of Nobue Kingdom, and everyone can fly. No, this unit gave up its defense and flew directly towards us. My God, there are so many flying troops, and the defense is amazing. This. All the soldiers of the Overlord country, as well as the senior officials, saw a large number of soldiers from the Xinhei Kingdom arriving in the sky. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 2589. Although they have a lot of anti-air weapons, each of them is designed to deal with fighters or ordinary strong men. Faced with the Xinhei Army Joint Squad, which can fly and has astonishing defensive capabilities, they are unable to. It's a matter of indifference. Here they come. Our anti-aircraft weapons can't hit them at all. Damn it, be prepared for close combat. Don't worry. After they join forces, they will only be as strong as less than 1,000. The soldiers of Nobue Kingdom need to form a squad of 6, so that they can join forces and become as strong as they are. The top leaders of the Overlord country had long known this information, so when the Xinhei troops unexpectedly flew up and avoided the artillery fire of the saturation attack, they wisely gave up the continued attack with artillery fire. Instead, he launched a counterattack against the strong. Follow the instructions and march together at intervals. Very good, with this kind of attack, they won't be able to attack us at all. Who came up with this tactic? Marshal Yan? He is indeed an earth-shattering talent. Maybe it's the mysterious genius staff officer. Not to mention the officers and soldiers of the Overlord's fleet, even the soldiers of the Xinhei Kingdom were shocked. Their evasion tactics, etc., were all transmitted from the command order that came suddenly just now. In addition to the intelligence, there were also extremely detailed response strategies. In the future, this will be enough for the soldiers to fight in the sky. Standard tactics. But they had no idea that this tactic was not what Jia Yan had in mind, and it was not as great as they thought. It's just a tactical guide written by a kid like Edisha just for snacks. The speed is jaw-dropping. But the actual effect and efficiency are so efficient that people are stunned. Boom boom boom. Avoiding a large number of fleet attacks on the sky, this flying Nobue force entered into a head-on battle with the enemy's strong force that took off into the air. Although only one of the Overlord's armada has arrived, the total number of officers and soldiers in this fleet is still more than the 5,000 soldiers of the Shinkuro army. There are more than 20,000 soldiers in several large battleships, and there are even thousands of strong men who can fly into the sky. Therefore, after receiving the order to take off, the number of flying individual combatants on the surface was roughly the same as that of the Nobukoku team, which together was equivalent to 1,000 strong men. Rural troops from the Xinhei kingdom, if you want to fight our overlord country, you are still far away from it. Go to hell. The first head-to-head battle between the overlord country and Nobue country has just begun. And this battle, whether it was for the overlord country or the Xinhei country, was not a battle that used all their strength. But precisely because it was the first head-on battle between the overlord country and the Xinyi country, it still attracted the attention of tens of billions of people on the entire planet. Countless reporters stared at this seemingly impossible battle, waiting to see how the overlord would add fuel to the fire after it won, portraying Nobue country as an evil force that would be directly destroyed after the overlord took action. If anyone has a different view on this, it is only the people and media in Xinhei. On the world stage, no one would believe that the Nobue army, which was greatly inferior in terms of military strength, weapons and equipment, and the number of strong men, could still have any advantage over the invincible hegemonic army. Don't forget, before contacting the overlord, the Xinhei kingdom's troops also fought a fierce battle with a large number of garrison defenders at the ports of the Western Kingdom. They are outnumbered and at a disadvantage everywhere. How can they possibly win? Even in Xinhei, not everyone believes in this army. For example, some high-level officials who had been seized of power by Jia Yan were secretly trying to make a move, or the staff officers around Jia Yan. They were the ones who knew the situation on the battlefield best, and they knew very clearly about the strength of the enemy and our weakness in the war. Even the frosty secretary working next to Jia Yan looked a little worried after helping convey the tactical orders given by Edisha. Although I also believe in Chief Edisha, but... She stood outside the marshal's office waiting for orders. Under normal circumstances, she would stand outside waiting to deliver orders. But what? The secretary suddenly heard a milky voice at his feet. She was startled, then lowered her head, and found that it was Edisha, the little chief of staff who was second only to Marshal Yan in the entire marshal's palace, but everyone was not that afraid of her. Aside from her extremely clever mind, this little guy is just an ordinary naughty kid, so no one is afraid of her. Sir Edisha, I'm just worried about this battle. That's the overlord. The secretary couldn't help but stretched out his hand and gently grabbed the little girl's fluffy hair. He felt that a child was just a child. This hair quality and skin were so enviable to adult women. Don't worry, Edisha accepted her rubbing with enjoyment, then took out a lollipop from somewhere on her body and put it in her mouth to eat. She said vaguely, Edisha's tactics are invincible. They are invincible to the troops in this world, oh no, on this planet. Edisha will definitely win. This planet. The secretary accurately grasped the key points in the words. As for this world that Edisha said wrongly before, she ignored it. After all, talking about this world, she doesn't believe there is another world outside this world. At least in the history of this world, no scientist or strong person has ever verified the existence of another world. Lady Edisha, do you know anything about other planets? she asked a little weirdly. Edisha nodded, then furrowed her delicate brows, as if she thought about it very hard, and then shook her head. Edisha knows or doesn't know. Anyway, Edisha is very powerful. In the future, Edisha will go out to fight with aliens with the Marshal. Yeah, Lady Edisha can definitely do it. Yes, the secretary suddenly doesn't trust the chief of staff that much anymore. Everyone has been deceived by the big words spoken by this young chief of staff, who makes her speak in cute, childlike ways every day. It's a pity that the secretary was wrong about a certain truth. Otherwise, if he continued to ask, he might be able to get more accurate information from the mouth of the girl who jumped away to play. But even if Edissa told the truth, no one would believe her, and they would just think that she was just telling the truth. Even though she was the chief of staff, she spoke too many childish words, and fewer people believed her. Everyone only believed the official information she conveyed in Jia Yan's office. This Edisha dares to say anything now. Jia Yan was in the office, helplessly listening to Edisha leaking secrets to others, feeling that he was working so hard to hide it from others, like a fool. But he can't do what Edissa can do, because Edissa is a childish talker, but his image on this planet is not that of a young boy, but a well-known general marshal who keeps his word. If he dares to say that he will rush to alien planets in the future, or even say that he is a visitor from another world, the news will definitely go viral immediately. Maybe it won't be long before the White Dolphin will get clues and come to the door. Now he doesn't have the absolute power to start a war with the White Dolphins. Well, speaking of energy, the power I have collected now is too much for this planet, but for my body, it is like a drop in the bucket. It is simply a drop in the bucket. Although Jia Yan also understood the principle of eating one bite at a time, such a slow collection speed made him a little helpless. But fortunately, from now on, the war has entered a fast lane. As long as I defeat the Overlord, the speed at which I can gather strength will be unprecedented. Even if I finally absorb all the energy I can on this planet, it won't be a big deal, but it's enough to get me into space in this world. He really doesn't care much about this first war. Although the entire planet is now paying attention to this battle, he is confident in the soldiers he trained, and even more confident in the tactics that Edisha casually wrote, because he knows that on this planet, two people are just playing. Even if things go wrong, with the current fighting power of the two of them, they are afraid that they can directly destroy the Overlord or other countries alone. Of course, that would greatly increase the possibility that their secret of being outsiders would be exposed, and they would never do it unless absolutely necessary. I'm working hard here, and I think the White Dolphins are also working hard. I just don't know if they have found the key to cracking the power of my Black God. If he masters this key, he can also swallow my power. Then in the end, maybe the outcome of the final battle will still be me and him regaining their true bodies, and we will have a battle where I am at a huge disadvantage, and that will be detrimental to me. Jia Yan thought deeply, but quickly shook his head. It shouldn't be enough. Edisha said that my power has been locked countless times in this world. With her computer power, it will take a long time to unlock the password. Although it is not ruled out that the White Dolphin creatures have the possibility of a computing power, intelligence brain is more terrifying than Edita, but even so, it is impossible for them to crack the code of my power in such a short period of time. What I need to do is to take advantage of this period of time to devour as much of his power as possible. Of course, I will also take back the power I previously released into this world. As long as I do this, when I fight him head-on, my advantage will be huge, and as long as I defeat him, it means that I have the opportunity to promote. I just don't know that this promotion opportunity will make me go further and become a real as a senior domain master. I will still make my progress even more exaggerated. Jia Yan is actually also worried. If this troublesome way of promotion results in two people having a bloody fight, or even one of them dying in the future, but only getting a little improvement in strength, that will really make people lose interest. His improvement speed has never been slow. Even he knows that after entering the domain lord level, the improvement of strength has nothing to do with talent or anything else, but he still doesn't want to pay so much for a small improvement. Jia Yan is like the kind of young man who has not been hit by the real society, so he is arrogant. If many territory lords who were trapped in the primary territory lord stage heard his thoughts, I am afraid that all of them would laugh bitterly. Which territory lord is not a genius? Some are even promoted to territory lord faster than Jia Yan, but there are still many of them who have been trapped in the primary level of territory lord for a long time. This is the most uncomfortable part of reaching such a powerful person. Jia Yan's thoughts are no longer limited to this planet. Here he only found Edisha. Although he had been prepared for it, he still felt a little uncomfortable. A dozen of the other subordinates were injured when they last invaded this world. If under such circumstances, they were discovered by the white dolphins while they were sleeping, then maybe they would be injured. There will be danger, and this danger may also bring to Jia Yan, because these subordinates have his mark. The white dolphin, who is called the white god in this world, or the creation god, has absolute ability. It's extremely high. Maybe you can follow the clues and find your own body. I don't know how long I was in a trance for how long, until Jia Yan's secretary burst into the door happily and shouted, "Marshal Yan, we won." When we won the first battle against the Overlord, he couldn't even come to his senses. If you win, win. Don't be so surprised. Jia Yan looked at the secretary calmly, as if he was still unhappy that she gave up his idea. The secretary felt that Jia Yan's reaction was very different from what he had imagined. Even though this young marshal of the Xinhe kingdom has long been numb to victory, his opponent this time is the strongest country on the entire planet. How can you remain calm even after defeating such a country? It was as if this victory report was nothing more than a thought he had in his own trance. This is a bit too calm. Find bookstore. Marshal Yan, this is the Overlord country. With only 5,000 soldiers and more than 200 sacrifices, we defeated the Overlord country's large fleet of more than 20,000 people. This is a great event for you. Why don't you look happy at all? More than 200 people died on our side. But when this data was revealed, Jia Yan frowned. It's not like he believes in other people in the Black Kingdom, but he is extremely confident in his own modified version of Onmyedo and joint warfare. Using his combined tactics and Edisha's best fighting skills, he was able to kill more than 200 people. One can imagine how difficult this battle was. The Overlord country really has something. Well, since we have won, we have to fight back well. Now let the spokesperson of the military and the spokesperson of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs announce that since the Overlord country has not declared war on our country, then the Overlord officially declares war.